Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The story begins with workers cleaning under the Tony Stark Tower after the battle with the aliens. We see a man named Adrian, who is responsible for cleaning the area. Then a woman arrives and tells them to leave everything as it is, stating it's an order from Tony Stark. Adrian pleads with her, saying they need the job, but she doesn't listen. Adrian then heads to his workshop where a worker tells him there's still a shipment they haven't returned. Adrian tells him to leave it, and 8 years later, Adrian has used that shipment to manufacture weapons, sell them, and even create a suit that allows him to fly. We then see Peter Parker narrating his trip with Tony Stark when he joined a mission to stop Captain America. After the mission, Tony Stark drops him off, telling him to contact Happy if he needs anything or if there's a new mission, and then leaves. A month later, Peter is frustrated and sends many messages to Happy, who doesn't respond. No one has contacted him since the last mission. Peter goes to school, where we meet his only friend Ned, and a girl named Liz, whom Peter has a crush on but can't confess his feelings to. After school, Peter puts on his suit and flies around the city, looking for crimes to stop. He even catches someone stealing a bike. He tries contacting Happy again, but Happy doesn't respond. So Peter sends him a message saying he's ready and waiting for any mission. Suddenly, Peter sees 4 masked men with advanced weapons robbing an ATM. He intervenes, but one of them uses a weapon to pin him down. Their weapons are highly advanced, and one of them even uses a weapon that destroys part of the area. Peter manages to stop them and calls Happy to tell him about the advanced weapons, but Happy dismisses him, saying they're busy moving their belongings to a new headquarters. Peter returns home, changes his clothes, and sneaks into his room through the window. When he turns around, he's shocked to see Ned, who is equally stunned to discover Peter is Spider-Man. Peter tells Ned to keep it a secret, saying he's the first person to know after Tony Stark. Ned promises to keep the secret. The next day at school, Liz talks about how much she admires Spider-Man and wishes to meet him. Ned tells her that Peter knows Spider-Man. Liz invites Peter to her birthday party and asks him to bring Spider-Man along. At night, Peter and Ned go to the party. Ned asks Peter how he plans to appear as Spider-Man. Peter says he'll go to the bathroom, change into his suit, greet Liz as Spider-Man, and leave quickly. Peter changes into his suit but suddenly sees a bright light from a distance and decides to investigate. Peter finds Adrian's men selling weapons to someone. Suddenly, Ned calls Peter, and the gang hears the phone. Spider-Man attacks them, but one of them uses a weapon to throw him away. They escape, but Spider-Man chases them. The gang contacts Adrian for help, informing him that Spider-Man is after them. Adrian puts on his suit, stops Spider-Man, and throws him into the sea. Iron Man appears and saves Spider-Man, revealing that Tony Stark had placed a tracking device in Spider-Man's suit to monitor him. Peter tells Tony what he saw, but Tony dismisses it as just a suit and leaves. Frustrated, Peter finds a piece of the gang's weapon and takes it with him. Meanwhile, Adrian scolds one of his men for letting Spider-Man discover their operation, saying their work is now at risk and the Avengers might come after them. When the man threatens to expose Adrian's work to his family, Adrian kills him with a weapon and orders another man to retrieve the missing weapon. Peter and Ned examine the weapon and then spot 2 of Adrian's men searching for it. Peter hides from them and places a tracking device on them to find their location. He discovers they're heading toward the capital, where Peter's school is holding a competition. Peter decides to join the competition to stay close to them and catch them. Peter removes the tracking device from his suit and discovers many features in the suit after hacking it. He leaves the device with Ned and sneaks out to find the gang. However, when he tries to use his web shooters, they malfunction due to the suit's numerous options. Adrian breaks into a truck carrying advanced devices, using his technology to cut through the roof. Spider-Man attacks him, but Adrian fights back, knocking Spider-Man into the truck and leaving him unconscious. When Peter wakes up, he finds himself locked in a heavily secured warehouse that won't open for another 8 hours. He uses the time to explore the suit's features and discovers the device he left with Ned is actually a bomb. Peter tries to warn Ned but can't reach him due to poor signal. At the competition, Ned, unaware of the bomb, carries it in his pocket. Peter's school wins the competition, and they visit tourist sites, including a tower. The bomb starts to detonate, damaging the elevator. Spider-Man climbs the tower, breaks in, and saves everyone, including Liz, who almost falls. Adrian decides to eliminate Spider-Man for interfering with his work. Meanwhile, Peter tries to gather more information about the gang with the help of the suit's artificial intelligence. And he knows one place where the man who used to buy weapons is. He goes to him, pins him in the car, and keeps asking him about the location of those people. He learns that there's an operation happening right now on a ship at sea. Peter rushes to catch them, and when he arrives there, Tony Stark contacts him and tells him there are police in the area and that he should stay away from this matter. But Peter ignores him and attacks the gang. Then the police show up suddenly and Adrian appears in a suit trying to escape. Spider-Man throws his web to stop him, but Adrian tries to hit him with the weapon he has. Spider-Man manages to take it from him, throws another web to stop him, but Adrian says, "You don't understand what you're doing?" The weapon explodes, splitting the ship in half. Spider-Man tries to use his webs to hold the two parts together as much as he can. He succeeds, but the webs tear, and the ship is about to collapse again. Suddenly, Tony Stark appears and saves the situation using his machines. He keeps scolding Peter for ruining the operation, allowing the criminals to escape. Later, Tony Stark takes Peter to a high place, continues to scold him, and tells him he's still too young and not ready for this responsibility. He admits he made a mistake giving Peter the suit and takes it back. Peter tries to plead with him, but Stark doesn't listen and leaves with the suit. Then we see Adrian upset that the operation failed, planning an even bigger one. Later, Peter asks Liz to the graduation party, and she agrees, asking him to pick her up. When Peter goes to her house and knocks on the door, Adrian, Liz's father, opens the door. Peter is shocked to realize that the criminal he's been chasing is Liz's father. Adrian offers to drive them to the party since he's leaving town soon. On the way, Adrian keeps talking to Peter, commenting that his voice sounds familiar. Liz explains that Peter was with her on her birthday at home and also during the incident that happened. Adrian pieces everything together and realizes Spider-Man is Peter. When they arrive, Adrian tells Liz to go ahead, then confronts Peter, saying he knows he's Spider-Man. He gives Peter two choices: attend the party with Liz and forget everything, or continue interfering, in which case Adrian won't hesitate to kill him. Peter decides not to go to the party, runs after Adrian, but one of Adrian's men attacks him, knocking him away. Ned arrives to help Peter, giving him his web device. Peter manages to fight back, trapping the attacker on a bus. He tells Ned to call Happy and inform him that Liz's father is the criminal they're chasing. Peter had left his phone in the car to track Adrian's location. Ned calls Happy, but he doesn't listen. Adrian reaches his base near Tony Stark's tower, planning to steal the Avengers' weapons being transported to their new headquarters. Peter confronts Adrian, but Adrian stalls until his suit is ready. The suit activates, destroying the place, collapsing on Peter as Adrian escapes. Peter, overwhelmed and emotional, remembers Tony Stark's words when he scolded him and took the suit. This motivates Peter to get back up and free himself. He chases Adrian, clinging to his suit. Adrian boards the plane but notices Spider-Man outside through his camera. Frustrated, Adrian fights Spider-Man. During the fight, Adrian hits the plane's engine, causing it to crash. Peter tries to steer the plane away from the city as much as possible, and it crashes in a remote area. Adrian continues attacking Peter, almost defeating him, but notices the box he wants, containing the reactors he needs. He abandons Peter to retrieve it, but his wings malfunction and are about to explode. Peter tries to warn him, but Adrian doesn't listen. The wings explode, and Peter saves Adrian before he dies. Peter secures all the items from the plane, ties Adrian to them, and leaves a message for Happy, informing him that he's caught the criminal and completed his mission. Peter returns to school, sees Liz and her mother as they leave town following Adrian's arrest. Later, Peter receives a message and goes to the restroom, where he finds Happy, who thanks him for what he did. Happy takes Peter to the Avengers' new headquarters to meet Tony Stark. Tony thanks Peter for his efforts and invites him to join the Avengers. Peter declines, saying he prefers to remain the simple Spider-Man who protects his neighborhood from criminals. Peter returns home to find Tony Stark has sent him the suit again. He wears it, but his aunt sees him, realizing Peter is Spider-Man. This marks the end of part 1. The second part begins with Spider-Man at a charity event, where his aunt, now aware of his identity, uses him for good causes to encourage donations. After the event, Happy arrives with a $500,000 check donated by Stark Industries. Happy tells Peter that Nick Fury has been trying to contact him and insists he responds. Peter promises to think about it. He attends the event but grows tired of reporters' questions and leaves, sitting in front of an Iron Man portrait, reminiscing about Tony Stark. The next day, Peter packs for a school trip to Europe. His aunt suggests he take his Spider-Man suit in case he needs it, but Peter refuses, wanting to enjoy the trip. On the plane, Peter tells Ned he wants to sit next to MJ to confess his feelings. Ned tries to help but ends up messing things up, sitting next to a girl named Betty instead. Upon arriving in Italy, Peter is surprised to find his aunt pack the suit in his luggage. At the hotel, Peter later goes to buy MJ a gift and plans to confess his feelings. Suddenly, a massive water monster emerges, destroying everything around it. Peter, without his suit, struggles to deal with it, but a flying hero appears fighting the monster. Peter wears a mask and tells the person, "I can help you." And indeed, he helps him and defeats the monster. He meets Peter again, saying, "I can help you," and truly helps him defeat the monster. This person becomes famous, and the news starts talking about him. He was very powerful, and they call him Mysterio. Later, Peter returns to the hotel and suddenly finds Nick Fury in front of him. Fury sedates Ned and tells Peter that he has a mission for him. He explains that the monster they fought today is just one of many in different countries. He asks Peter to wear the suit and come with him. On their way, Fury gives Peter Tony Stark's glasses, which Tony had instructed to be given to Peter before his death. These glasses allow Peter to control many weapons and all of Tony Stark's technology, making them incredibly powerful. They arrive at Nick Fury's headquarters, where Peter meets Mysterio. Mysterio introduces himself to Peter, explaining that he is from a parallel world that was destroyed by 4 monsters, one of which Peter saw today. These monsters can control natural elements like water, fire, air, and sand. After killing his family and destroying his world, they came to this world to destroy it as well. Mysterio asks Peter for help, but Peter just wants to enjoy his trip and declines, walking away. The next day, as they are heading to Paris, the trip organizer announces that the travel company has changed the destination to another country. Peter is surprised to find that the bus driver is Dimitri, one of Nick Fury's men, and realizes that Fury altered the trip's destination. On the bus, Peter wears Tony Stark's glasses and hacks into the devices of everyone present. Later, during a stop, Peter meets one of Fury's team members, who gives him a suit to wear. Suddenly, one of Peter's classmates enters and takes a picture of him, threatening to show it to MJ. Peter tries to hack his phone to delete the picture, but accidentally launches a drone from the satellite. He manages to resolve the situation at the last moment. They arrive at their new destination, and Peter goes to Nick Fury's location. Mysterio explains their plan, saying they need to keep the monster away from any metal because it grows in size as it absorbs metal, potentially destroying the Earth. Later, Peter goes to a landmark with his friends and tries to talk to MJ, but he gets distracted and leaves. Suddenly, the fire monster appears in the city. Peter and Mysterio arrive to handle the situation. They fight the monster, but it absorbs everything around it and grows larger. Mysterio tells Peter that he will enter the monster and blow himself up to destroy it. Peter protests, saying that Mysterio will die, but Mysterio insists, saying it's necessary. He carries out his plan and destroys the monster. Nick Fury arrives to thank Peter and Mysterio, inviting Peter to join his team. Peter hesitates, wanting to live a normal life. Later, Mysterio invites Peter for a drink and talks to him, encouraging him to join his team. Peter remains hesitant, preferring a normal life. During their conversation, Peter shows Mysterio Tony Stark's glasses. He lets Mysterio wear them, commenting that they suit him well. Peter decides to transfer ownership of the glasses to Mysterio, feeling the responsibility is too great for him. He tells Mysterio, "You were willing to risk your life to save people, so you deserve them more than I do." Peter leaves, unaware that the place they were in was an illusion. Mysterio is not a superhero, but someone highly skilled in technology. The technology he uses creates realistic illusions, making people believe they are in real situations. The monsters they fought were also just illusions. Mysterio's plan all along was to get Tony Stark's glasses from Peter, and he succeeds. It turns out Mysterio used to work for Tony Stark, but was fired. Peter returns to the hotel on the last day of the trip and decides to confess his feelings to MJ. As he talks to her, MJ reveals that she knows he is Spider-Man. She shows him a device with Spider-Man's webbing on it. When Peter activates the device, he sees the monster they fought earlier and realizes that the monsters were just illusions. He understands that Mysterio deceived him. Meanwhile, Mysterio prepares a new illusion to stage a heroic act in the city, aiming to be seen as a savior. However, he discovers the device that MJ has and, using the satellite, sees Peter and MJ talking with the device. Mysterio realizes that Peter knows the truth and decides to kill him before he can inform Nick Fury. Peter goes to Nick Fury to reveal the truth about Mysterio. However, it turns out that Fury is also an illusion created by Mysterio. Mysterio manipulates Peter with more illusions, making him believe he's being attacked. Eventually, a train hits Peter, and Mysterio assumes he is dead. However, Peter survives and wakes up in the Netherlands. He borrows a phone to call Happy, who comes to pick him up. Peter explains everything that happened and uses Tony Stark's technology to create a new suit to defeat Mysterio. Mysterio goes to the location where Peter's friends are to kill them. He creates another illusion, summoning a monster that begins destroying everything around it. People panic and start running. Happy contacts Nick Fury to reveal the truth about Mysterio through a coded message. Fury understands and continues to play along with Mysterio's act. Spider-Man arrives at the scene and enters the monster illusion, destroying the drones creating it. Mysterio sees Peter and starts shooting at him, but Peter manages to reach him. Mysterio traps Peter in another illusion, but this time, Peter overcomes it and defeats Mysterio, taking back Tony Stark's glasses. Mysterio is accidentally injured by his own drones and dies. Spider-Man saves the day. Later, Peter goes to MJ and finally confesses his feelings to her. They share a moment and swing through the city together. Suddenly, a screen in the city displays a video from Mysterio, accusing Spider-Man of trying to kill him and revealing Spider-Man's true identity to the world. Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and everyone finds out the truth. Peter is shocked when he sees the video revealing his identity. This marks the end of second part. The third part begins with Mysterio's video exposing Spider-Man's life, claiming he wanted to kill him. Peter is stunned when he learns that people know his secret, and he quickly takes MJ and starts running from the crowd accusing him of killing Mysterio. They attack him, and he rushes home, locking all the windows. Police helicopters surround his house, and the media brands him a murderer, not a hero. The police arrest Peter, interrogating him, Ned, MJ, and Aunt May. However, a skilled lawyer named Matt Murdock, Daredevil, helps them get released. At night, Peter talks to MJ, and they plan to go to school the next day to gather documents for college applications. The next day, Peter arrives at school, facing attacks and insults from the media and some people, though others still support him as a hero. Later, Peter, Ned, and MJ sit on the school rooftop, discussing their plans to apply to the same university and awaiting acceptance letters. When the first college response arrives, Peter is rejected. He applies to another university and is rejected again. Finally, the three of them open their last letters together, only to be denied due to the controversy surrounding Spider-Man and accusations of Mysterio's murder. Even Ned and MJ are rejected because of their connection to Peter. Peter turns to Doctor Strange, explaining how his life was ruined after people learned his identity. He asks Strange to turn back time and change events, but Strange says he no longer has the Time Stone. Instead, he offers to cast a spell that will make everyone forget Peter Parker is Spider-Man. As Strange begins the spell, Peter interrupts, asking for exceptions so his friends and loved ones won't forget him. This disrupts the spell, causing it to fail. Peter later learns that a friend of his was accepted into the college he wanted and asked for the location of the college administrator to plead for his friend's acceptance. He finds her traveling out of town and rushes to meet her. Just as he convinces her to consider his friends, Peter's spider sense activates. He senses danger and encounters Dr. Octavius, who attacks him. They fight, and during the battle, Octavius takes nanotechnology from Peter's suit, allowing Peter to control Octavius's mechanical arms. Peter saves the administrator, who promises to speak with the college board on behalf of him and his friends. Suddenly, a bomb is thrown, and Green Goblin appears, attacking Peter. Before the fight escalates, Peter is transported to Doctor Strange's lair, where Octavius is imprisoned. Strange explains that the failed spell opened portals to other universes, bringing villains who know Peter Parker is Spider-Man into their world. He shows Peter another captured villain, Dr. Kurt Connors, Lizard, from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man films. Strange gives Peter a device to trap the villains and asks him to find and capture the others. Peter enlists MJ and Ned to help. They locate Electro, who controls electricity, and battle him. Sandman appears and aids Peter. Peter traps them both and sends them to Strange's lair. Peter receives a call from Aunt May, who says someone is at her place. He rushes there to find Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, who seeks help to control his alter ego. Aunt May convinces Peter to help the villains by curing them before sending them back to their worlds, as they are ultimately human. Peter takes them to Strange's lair, where Octavius learns he died years ago. Sandman confirms that they all face death if returned to their original universes. Peter decides to help them, but Strange disagrees, activating the spell to send them back. Peter steals the spell device, fighting Strange in the mirror dimension. Using math, Peter defeats Strange, takes his teleportation ring, and traps him in the mirror dimension. Peter returns to the villains, promising to cure them. He works with Norman to fix Octavius's mechanical arms, successfully curing him. They then create a device to drain Electro's energy. However, Peter's spider sense warns him of danger. Norman reverts to Green Goblin, declaring their abilities are not curses, but gifts to be exploited. The other villains agree, and chaos ensues. Green Goblin fights Peter, overpowering him. Aunt May intervenes but is fatally injured by Green Goblin. Before dying, she tells Peter that he did the right thing trying to help and reminds him of the iconic line, "With great power comes great responsibility." Devastated, Peter watches her die as police arrive, forcing him to flee. Ned and MJ, grieving Aunt May's death, use Strange's ring to open a portal to find Peter. Instead, they summon Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man from another universe. Trying again, they summon Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. The two alternate Spider-Men join forces with Ned and MJ to find Peter. They comfort him, sharing their own losses and reminding him of his duty as a hero, steering him away from vengeance against Green Goblin. And it reminds him of the famous phrase, "With great power comes great responsibility." After that, they go to the lab and keep working on the cure, and the three of them keep talking to each other, getting to know one another better. They come up with a plan to lure the villains, which is for Peter to go live on air and say that he will use the box to send them back to their worlds, which would result in their deaths. Peter reveals their location, and indeed they arrive, and the fighting begins. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man gives Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man the first device, and he is able to cure Sandman. But they can't handle Electro, who is very powerful. Then Dr. Octavius arrives, helps them, and cures Electro as well as the others. After that, Ned opens a portal, and Doctor Strange enters. Ned tells him that the plan worked and that the villains are being cured. Doctor Strange takes the box and goes to Peter, only to be surprised by the three Spider-Men in front of him. He tells them that they need to cast Rejected. He applies to another university and is rejected again. Finally, the three of them open their last letters together, only to be denied due to the controversy surrounding Spider-Man and accusations of Mysterio's murder. Even Ned and MJ are rejected because of their connection to Peter. Peter turns to Doctor Strange, explaining how his life was ruined after people learned his identity. He asks Strange to turn back time and change events, but Strange says he no longer has the Time Stone. Instead, he offers to cast a spell that will make everyone forget Peter Parker is Spider-Man. As Strange begins the spell, Peter interrupts, asking for exceptions so his friends and loved ones won't forget him. This disrupts the spell, causing it to fail. Peter later learns that a friend of his was accepted into the college he wanted and asked for the location of the college administrator to plead for his friend's acceptance. He finds her traveling out of town and rushes to meet her. Just as he convinces her to consider his friends, Peter's spider sense activates. He senses danger and encounters Dr. Octavius, who attacks him. They fight, and during the battle, Octavius takes nanotechnology from Peter's suit, allowing Peter to control Octavius's mechanical arms. Peter saves the administrator, who promises to speak with the college board on behalf of him and his friends. Suddenly, a bomb is thrown, and Green Goblin appears, attacking Peter. Before the fight escalates, Peter is transported to Doctor Strange's lair, where Octavius is imprisoned. Strange explains that the failed spell opened portals to other universes, bringing villains who know Peter Parker is Spider-Man into their world. He shows Peter another captured villain, Dr. Kurt Connors' Lizard, from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man films. Strange gives Peter a device to trap the villains and asks him to find and capture the others. Peter enlists MJ and Ned to help. They locate Electro, who controls electricity, and battle him. Sandman appears and aids Peter. Peter traps them both and sends them to Strange's lair. Peter receives a call from Aunt May, who says someone is at her place. He rushes there to find Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, who seeks help to control his alter ego. Aunt May convinces Peter to help the villains by curing them before sending them back to their worlds, as they are ultimately human. Peter takes them to Strange's lair, where Octavius learns he died years ago. Sandman confirms that they all face death if returned to their original universes. Peter decides to help them, but Strange disagrees, activating the spell to send them back. Peter steals the spell device, fighting Strange in the mirror dimension. Using math, Peter defeats Strange, takes his teleportation ring, and traps him in the mirror dimension. Peter returns to the villains, promising to cure them. He works with Norman to fix Octavius's mechanical arms, successfully curing him. They then create a device to drain Electro's energy. However, Peter's spider sense warns him of danger. Norman reverts to Green Goblin, declaring their abilities are not curses but gifts to be exploited. The other villains agree, and chaos ensues. Green Goblin fights Peter, overpowering him. Aunt May intervenes but is fatally injured by Green Goblin. Before dying, she tells Peter that he did the right thing trying to help and reminds him of the iconic line, "With great power comes great responsibility." Devastated, Peter watches her die as police arrive, forcing him to flee. Ned and MJ, grieving Aunt May's death, use Strange's ring to open a portal to find Peter. Instead, they summon Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man from another universe. Trying again, they summon Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. The two alternate Spider-Men join forces with Ned and MJ to find Peter. They comfort him, sharing their own losses and reminding him of his duty as a hero, steering him away from vengeance against Green Goblin. And it reminds him of the famous phrase, "With great power comes great responsibility." After that, they go to the lab and keep working on the cure, and the three of them keep talking to each other, getting to know one another better. They come up with a plan to lure the villains, which is for Peter to go live on air and say that he will use the box to send them back to their worlds, which would result in their deaths. Peter reveals their location, and indeed they arrive, and the fighting begins. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man gives Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man the first device, and he is able to cure Sandman, but they can't handle Electro, who is very powerful. Then Dr. Octavius arrives, helps them, and cures Electro as well as the others. After that, Ned opens a portal, and Doctor Strange enters. Ned tells him that the plan worked and that the villains are being cured. Doctor Strange takes the box and goes to Peter, only to be surprised by the three Spider-Men in front of him. He tells them that they need to cast the spell now to send the villains back to their worlds before a catastrophe happens. Suddenly, Green Goblin appears, takes the device from them, and throws bombs at them. MJ almost falls, and Tom Holland's Spider-Man tries to save her, but Goblin attacks him and stops him. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man saves her at the last moment, and he remembers how he couldn't save his girlfriend, breaking down in tears. Tom Holland's Spider-Man then goes to fight Green Goblin violently, intending to take revenge and kill him. Just before he finishes him off, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man intervenes to stop him. Green Goblin stabs Tobey in the back, and Andrew Garfield throws the device to Tom Holland, who cures Green Goblin. Tobey is okay, and Doctor Strange tells Peter that all the worlds are merging into one another and that everything will collapse. Doctor Strange doesn't know how to stop it. Peter suggests casting the forgetting spell again, but Strange warns him that if this happens, everyone will forget him. Peter Parker will have never existed. All his loved ones and everyone who knows him will forget him completely. Peter takes responsibility and agrees. The spell is cast successfully, and all the villains return to their worlds. Tom Holland's Spider-Man bids farewell to the other two Spider-Men, who also return to their worlds. Peter then goes to Ned and MJ to explain the situation to them. They are saddened that they will forget him, but they ask him to promise to find them and remind them of him again. He promises them and leaves. Doctor Strange's spell works, and the entire world forgets Peter Parker completely. The next day, Peter goes to the place where MJ works and finds Ned there too. Before he reminds them of who he is, he changes his mind, deciding to keep them out of danger so they can live normal, peaceful lives. He then rents a room to live in and makes his own suit because he wants to keep them safe and let them live peacefully. He begins fighting crime in the city again, with no one knowing his true identity. And that was the end of our story. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell.
Welcome to Cinepro, where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. Our movie begins with geologists and prospectors in the heart of the desert. They are tasked with conducting a geological survey. After several explosions, they set off on the ground. They discover strange activity in volcanic vents beneath the sand. They are all surprised by the test results and manage to pinpoint the location of the unusual activity, which is about 7 kilometers away from their current position. They decide to explore the site themselves to uncover the reason behind these strange results. The three of them head to the location and find a strange bone statue standing alone in the desert. Nearby, they notice a block of sandstone. One of them approaches to take a sample and discovers it is hollow from the inside. They feel an unusual movement in the area. Suddenly, a creature emerges from within the block, and the man in front of it disappears. Shortly after, the rest of the team vanishes as well, leaving no trace behind. We then shift to Zach, a skilled prospector, who is assigned to head to a specific site. He accepts the mission and travels to the location, finding himself in the middle of the desert where he encounters an old man selling strange items. When Zach asks him about the place, the man hands him an item, claiming it is powerful, then falls silent. Zach waits under the sun for the person responsible for guiding him in the desert. Eventually, a truck approaches, and a man named Carl steps out to greet him. Carl is assigned to assist him. Zach notices a skull on the front of the truck but pays no attention to it and gets into the vehicle. As they drive, Zach observes many animal skeletons scattered around, with nothing left but bones. They reach the excavation station, where Zach introduces himself to the staff. He meets Mickey, who asks for his passport to register his entry. She checks his belongings and finds his bag full of equipment, including a small device. When she inquires about its function, Zach explains that it analyzes rock layers and can detect water at depths of up to 100 feet, or identify unusual activity in the soil. Johan, Mickey's colleague, mocks Zach, claiming he can find water with his bare eyes. Johan comments that he hopes Zach lasts longer than the last person who came to their station. A heated argument breaks out between Johan and Carl, escalating into a physical fight in front of Zach. Johan is thrown off the desk, prompting Zach and Mickey to leave the office. Mickey informs Zach that they will travel in the truck that delivers backup fuel to their station. The truck's primary purpose is transporting prospectors. Their destination is the last known location of the other prospectors, which is 17 hours away. Once they arrive, they will spend time searching for the team in the vast desert, as pinpointing their exact location is challenging. Carl prepares the truck with first aid, supplies, and weapons for the journey. Before they depart, a guard named Titus joins them, and their journey begins. During the trip, they discuss a missing vehicle that carried the prospectors. After traveling for several kilometers, they come across the missing vehicles and find 2 dead prospectors nearby. Shocked and unsure of how to proceed, they realize they must report the incident to the authorities, suspecting it might be a murder case. The condition of the bodies suggests an unnatural death. Since there were supposed to be 3 prospectors, they question the whereabouts of the third, Harvey. Titus discovers footprints leading away from the scene, possibly belonging to Harvey, who may have killed the others and fled. They follow the tracks, but additional footprints mysteriously appear out of nowhere, leaving them baffled. Strange symbols resembling warnings appear in the sand, adding to the mystery. Continuing their pursuit, they follow the tracks for about 30 kilometers and eventually find Harvey's mutilated body. They are shocked by the discovery, as it seems impossible for Harvey to have run such a long distance and then died in this manner within 9 hours of his disappearance. They identify Harvey by a metal pin in his injured leg. Carl remains convinced there is a killer at large and insists on searching for them. Due to the delay, they decide to camp for the night and leave the investigation to the authorities in the morning. Zach struggles to sleep, haunted by what he has witnessed. Unable to rest, Zach decides to slide down the sand dunes using a piece of equipment. Mickey warns him of the dangers of wandering alone at night, but he assures her he will return shortly. As Zach sits alone, his device emits a loud noise, indicating it has detected something nearby. He looks around and sees a strange creature standing next to him. Terrified, Zach runs back to Carl and tells him about the creature. Carl looks around but finds nothing, dismissing Zach's claims as drunken hallucinations. However, Mickey notices that the bones they had seen earlier have disappeared, lending some credibility to Zach's story. Carl still believes Zach is trying to scare them and refuses to believe there is anything unusual in the desert. Titus shares a legend about a creature named Asicolo, which claims ownership of anyone or anything in the desert, whether human or animal. The creature is said to live forever by draining life from the bones of living beings. Titus admits he never thought the legend could be true. The group returns to the truck, waiting for daylight to continue following the tracks in the sand. At sunrise, they resume their pursuit and spot a strange creature in the distance. Carl shoots it with his rifle, causing it to disappear into the sand, leaving only bones behind. When they reach the spot, they find Harvey's bones once again. The group is bewildered by what they see. Carl collects Harvey's remains to take them back. Titus seems to be the only one who understands the events unfolding around them. When Zach asks him for an explanation, Titus tells him that a long time ago, he had a colleague who suddenly disappeared as well, leaving behind nothing but emptiness, with the flesh missing. He's certain about who's responsible for this. It's Asicolo. They all get back into the car, but sparks fly, the wires burn, and they can't move the car. They try calling for help via radio, but they don't get a signal from their location, so they send out a distress signal. Kurt says the distress signal was received by a plane flying overhead, and help will arrive in 2 days. Until then, they have enough supplies to last them at their location. They set up a tent and prepare for the night, assigning patrol duties to each person to monitor the area until night falls. Kurt takes his turn and then goes to sleep in his small tent. At that moment, the creature is watching them from afar. It notices Kurt sleeping alone and approaches him. Titus hears a sound around him, so he goes to check on Kurt and finds something controlling him, resembling black ants devouring his flesh. When Titus tries to save him, the ants take over his arm as well. Carly wakes up, shoots at Kurt's corpse, saves Titus, and they all escape to their car. The ants, unaffected by bullets, head toward them. Carly decides to pour gasoline on the ants and set them on fire, but Magda, the driver, stops him because the car is full of gasoline, and they could all die. Zach points out that the ants are retreating because of the gasoline spilled on the ground. Carly continues pouring gasoline on them until they sink beneath the sand and disappear. Returning to check on Titus, they find him in critical condition and in urgent need of a hospital as he has lost a lot of blood. Zach hears on his device that something is approaching them, so he goes out to pour more gasoline around the car. At that moment, he sees the creature in front of him. Carly tries to shoot it, but the bullets have no effect, and the creature regenerates every time it's hit. The bullets are useless against Asicolo, and it doesn't disappear from their sight. They start thinking about how to save Titus before he dies in their hands. Magda suggests they return to the miner's car because it has a radio, and they could expedite help. She decides to stay with Titus, while at dawn, Carly, Zach, and Mickey head toward the car, which is 30 or 40 kilometers away, to use its radio. They take a jerry can of gasoline with them, but a strong sandstorm hits, scattering the gasoline in the sand, leaving only a small amount. The storm also damages Zach's device, which was used to detect the creature's proximity. Night falls as they walk, and they rest beside a tree. Zach creates a circle around them with the remaining gasoline, and they sit quietly. Zach hears a strange sound and asks about it. Mickey explains that it's the sound of the desert caused by the friction of sand grains in the stillness of the night, making the sand move. Zach points out that there's no wind at all. Suddenly, the strange creature appears before them, wearing Magda's face. They realize it has killed Magda and Titus and is now coming to kill them. It tries to approach, but the gasoline keeps it at bay. They stay awake until the next day. They wake up to the sound of the radio in the miner's car, realizing it's nearby. They run toward the sound and find a signal, reporting their location. They sit down and discover they are near the sandstone mass that the miners had broken earlier. They find something resembling a nest and realize they are in the queen ant's nest. Asicolo is a type of ant that had been living in the nest for a long time until someone broke it, threatening its survival. It now needs to feed on the most essential parts of the human body: flesh and bone. It uses the flesh to sustain itself and the bones as a structure to move. That's why when Carly shot at Kurt's body, it destroyed the bones the ants were using for movement. The creature crawls toward them because its structure is destroyed and it needs a new one. Suddenly, they hear Johann's voice as he arrives at their location. When he sees the corpses, he threatens them with a gun, thinking they killed their colleagues over something valuable, like diamonds, found in the hole. He takes them all in his car to Magda's vehicle. Carly hits Johann on the head to knock him out. Zach and Carly decide they must hunt the creature because it's unique and they can't escape from it easily. Just as it killed their colleagues, it could kill anyone else who comes to the desert. Mickey is the only one who believes they should flee the area quickly, but she has no choice but to help them with their plan. They deduce that the creature, now without a home, will look for the nearest place to establish a new colony. They guess it has moved to the abandoned mine and head there. They find the creature in the mine, as it has no other place to live. They leave Johann tied up in the car and take with them a chemical substance that is highly flammable and explosive, stronger than gasoline. Zach manages to turn on the lights in the mine so they can see clearly. They search for Asicolo's nest and eventually find it. Carly tries to drive it out, but before the creature can kill him, Zach distracts it, luring it into a deep trench. They pour the chemical substance on it and set it on fire, but the creature grabs Carly's leg and pulls him down with it. Carly sacrifices himself by detonating the substance, killing both himself and the creature. After the explosion, they discover the source of the ants' control and find that the ants have surrounded them. Zach pulls out a dagger and stabs the control center, causing the ants to scatter. Zach and Mickey escape the mine just before it collapses. They find Johann dead in the car because they had left him tied up outside. Zach and Mickey are the only survivors, successfully killing Asakolo and saving others from its threat. If you liked today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all new updates. See you in the next video. Hey film fans, welcome to Cine Pro, your ultimate hub for all movie recaps, from heartwarming classics to the latest blockbusters. The Farm Movie. The film begins with a man named Alec, and we see him with his girlfriend Nora going on a trip. On the way, they stop at a supermarket, but they find it closed. Nora tells Alec, "I'm gonna look for a bathroom behind the supermarket." She goes to the back and sees things scattered on the ground, but she ignores them and proceeds. Suddenly, we see a human skull, but Nora doesn't notice it and continues on her way. Later, she encounters a woman who questions her relationship with Alec, implying it's not serious. Nora is surprised and tells the woman to mind her own business. The woman responds that since Nora is standing there, it does concern her. The conversation becomes tense, and Nora decides to leave. They arrive at a restaurant and order food. A strange man in the restaurant keeps staring at them. Nora finishes her meal and gets up to leave, but the strange man grabs her and warns her that she isn't safe there, urging her to leave immediately. Frightened, Nora rushes back to Alec, and they leave the restaurant to continue their trip. They stop at a gas station, where Alec asks the attendant about a hotel. The attendant gives them odd looks and directs them to wooden cabins down the road. Nora expresses discomfort with the attendant's behavior, suggesting they continue driving instead of staying at the cabins. However, Alec insists he's too tired to drive and needs to rest. When they reach the cabins, they see several parked cars, which reassures them that the place isn't deserted. Inside, the hotel is old and run down. Nora feels uneasy and wants to leave, but Alec convinces her to stay. They meet the hotel owner, who seems terrified upon seeing them. He asks how long they've been there, and they reply they just arrived to book a room for the night. The owner takes them to a room, tries to make small talk, and then leaves them alone. The room has an upper bunk bed, and unbeknownst to them, the bed is stained with blood. They turn off the lights and go to sleep. During the night, a figure wearing a rabbit mask emerges from under their bed. The next morning, Nora wakes up to find herself locked in a cage. She screams, but a masked man appears and hits the cage to silence her. When he leaves, Nora finds a rock on the ground and tries to break the lock. Suddenly, two masked figures appear, throw a substance on her, and she loses consciousness. When she wakes up, she's tied up in a room. A masked man injects her with a large syringe and leaves. Later, she's placed back in a cage, which is dragged away. She sees that everyone around her is wearing masks. She screams for help, but no one responds. She notices a human corpse hanging nearby. Meanwhile, Alec wakes up in an animal barn, locked in a cage. He sees other young men in similar cages. Masked figures enter, choose one of the captives, and hit him on the head, rendering him unconscious. They drag him outside. Alec screams, but a masked figure hits him on the head, knocking him out. Alec and the others are taken to a strange factory. The factory processes human body parts for trade. The masked figures dispose of the waste, which consists of human remains. Later, we see the hotel and restaurant owners discussing food supplies. They mention needing more meat for important guests. It becomes clear that the meat served at the restaurant earlier was human flesh. In another part of the facility, women are connected to machines extracting milk from them. The women are treated like cattle, and injections are administered to prevent them from having children. One of the women gives birth, but the baby is immediately killed in front of her. The grieving mother is later killed as well. Nora, still trapped, sees a young woman hooked up to the milk extracting machine. The woman explains that they are being used like cows to produce milk. She reveals that once their milk production decreases, they are killed and their meat is cooked. With these two, Nora heard the voice of a girl among the captives, whose name was Ashley. She told Nora, "They took me 2 weeks ago, and I tried to escape, but I failed." Nora replied, promising her, "I will figure out a way for us to escape." Suddenly, the masked men arrived and took the girl who was tied with wires, killing her and disposing of her because of her low milk production. Nora heard the girl's screams as she died, and she broke down and started crying. Suddenly, the door opened, and she saw Alec, who had managed to escape and came to take her with him to flee. Indeed, he took her, and they ran as fast as they could. On the way, they saw a church ahead of them and hid inside. At that moment, they heard someone entering the church. Nora and Alec immediately hid behind the door. One of the masked men entered the church and began to pray. Nora and Alec took advantage of his distraction and slipped out of the church. However, the masked man noticed them and rang the church bell. Nora and Alec ran as fast as they could, but due to Alec's injuries and the beatings he had endured, he couldn't run fast and fell into an animal trap. His leg got caught in the trap. Nora tried to help him but failed. Suddenly, the masked men arrived, and Nora started crying. She told Alec, "I have to leave you, but I promise I'll come back with help." She immediately fled while the farmers came and lifted a large stone, killing Alec with it. Now we turn to Nora. She entered the barn on the farm and saw a young man locked in a cage. She asked him for help, saying, "How can I get out of here?" The young man told her, "The bus that transports goods has its key in the main house. Use it to escape." Nora quickly headed there. On her way, she saw an open car with one of the masked men nearby. Nora grabbed a hammer, approached the masked man, and struck him on the head, knocking him unconscious. Nora decided to remove his mask to understand why they wore them, but suddenly, she saw the masked men coming toward her. She left the masked man and immediately got into the car and fled. She was overjoyed to have escaped them. However, before she could leave the farm, the car ran out of fuel. Nora was forced to get out of the car and return to the farm. She searched for the main house the young man had mentioned. She reached the kitchen but heard the masked men coming after her. She immediately entered the basement and tried to escape through the window. The masked men reached her and attempted to catch her, but Nora fought them off and managed to climb out of the window. She returned to the barn where she had been held captive and went to get Ashley. Together, they headed to the main house, took the keys, and made their way to the bus. They were overjoyed and quickly got on the bus. Nora started the bus, and it roared to life. She turned to check on Ashley behind her, but to her shock, she found the bus filled with masked men. After this incident, we see the masked men gathered around a dining table. On the table, we see Nora and Ashley, served as the main dish for the masked leaders. And with this, the movie ends. If you liked today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all new updates. See you in the next video.
Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The movie Wonder Woman. The story begins in a very strange time, a time when humans lived with their natural goodness, living without wars, in peace and tranquility. Safety prevailed over all of humanity during the reign of King Zeus. King Zeus was a just ruler, governing humanity on Earth. Zeus had a son named Ares, but as time passed, everything changed as Ares grew older. Ares wanted to seize power and take over his father's kingdom by destroying it with hatred and evil. He decided to wage war against his father to claim the throne. Indeed, he began fighting him, and in a very fierce battle, Zeus was killed. But before dying, Zeus created a small kingdom underground, a kingdom difficult for anyone to reach. In this kingdom, he placed extraordinary women tasked with protecting the earth from Ares and evil. They were called the Amazons. This island was inhabited only by women, devoid of men. On this island, there was only one child named Diana, the daughter of the Queen of the Amazons. Diana was curious and would often sneak away from her lessons to watch the Amazons train for battle. She would go to her aunt, who was in charge of training the army, and ask her to teach her how to fight and wield a sword. But her aunt knew that Diana's mother, the queen, disapproved of this because she wanted Diana to focus on her studies. The queen believed Diana was a child who deserved to live her childhood away from war. However, the aunt saw the enthusiasm and courage in Diana, realizing her love for combat, so she decided to train her in secret. As days passed, Diana would wait for her mother, the queen, to fall asleep. then sneak off to her aunt. They would meet in a secluded place where no one could see them, and her aunt began teaching her how to fight and defend herself. Years went by, and Diana grew older, continuing her training with her aunt. One day her mother discovered this. The queen was furious with her sister for disobeying her orders and teaching Diana to fight. They argued about Diana, but her sister told her that Diana was the only one capable of confronting Ares. She explained that Diana possessed extraordinary and genuine powers. She added that the more Diana trained, the better she could defend them all, giving the Amazons greater strength. The queen was moved by her sister's words and began to cry, admitting that she had forbidden Diana because she was her only daughter. Her sister reassured her not to worry about this. The queen then decided to allow her daughter to train, instructing her sister to teach Diana the most advanced training methods. Years passed, and Diana grew into a highly skilled fighter. One day, during a duel with her aunt, Diana defeated her, using powers that unexpectedly emerged. She was unaware of these powers. The Amazons were frightened by Diana's abilities. Diana began to cry, feeling regretful for unintentionally hurting her aunt. When she reached the shore, she was surprised to see a plane crash into the sea. Inside the plane was a man drowning. Diana quickly dove into the water to rescue him. We learn that this man's name is Steve, a soldier in British intelligence. After saving him from drowning, Diana asked him what kind of creature he was. Steve was puzzled by her question, but she asked because she had never seen a man before and knew nothing about them. Suddenly, German forces breached the island's borders, pursuing Steve with naval ships. A battle ensued between the Amazons and the German army. The Amazons fought with old weapons like arrows and swords, while the Germans had modern weapons like bullets and cannons. Despite this, the Amazons managed to defeat the German army, but at a heavy cost, losing many Amazons. Suddenly, a bullet was fired at Diana, but her aunt took the bullet for her, dying as a result. Diana's mother was enraged at Steve and wanted to kill him, but Diana defended him, explaining how he came to be there. Steve was taken to the Amazons' Court of Justice, where he was tied with a truth-revealing rope. Anyone bound by this rope would tell the truth, or suffer a strong electric shock if they lied. Knowing this, Steve revealed his identity, explaining that he was a spy working for the British Army. He had infiltrated the German army as a pilot to gather intelligence on their weapons and ammunition. During his mission, he managed to steal a book that detailed the creation of gas weapons. These weapons could completely destroy areas. Steve recounted how he escaped the factory with the book, but was pursued by German forces. He found a plane, stole it, and flew off, intending to destroy all the German weapons factories. However, the plane malfunctioned due to the explosions, crashing into the sea. The Germans continued to chase him because he had taken their most important book. Steve told them that when the plane crashed, Diana saved him from drowning. He then spoke about the horrors of war, describing how wars orphan children and kill women, benefiting only the leaders. Diana was deeply moved by his words and decided to save humanity from this injustice. She told her mother she wanted to rescue humanity from evil, convinced that Ares was behind the corruption on Earth. She declared her intent to defeat him. Her mother dismissed Steve's story as a mere fantasy, insisting that humans were inherently evil. Diana, however, said it was her duty as an Amazon to confront Ares, defeat him, and save the Earth. Her mother opposed this idea, but Diana went her own way, heading towards Steve. She found him preparing to swim in clear waters. Steve asked her about the island's location and coordinates, trying to figure out where he was. Diana was puzzled by his question, as she had no knowledge of such things. She noticed a watch beside Steve and asked him what it was. He explained that it was a device that organized his time, telling him when to eat and sleep. Diana was amazed, mocking how such a small object could dictate his life. Steve then asked her when she planned to leave the island. Diana replied that she wouldn't leave unless he took her with him to fight the evil on Earth. Steve laughed, not believing what she was saying. Because it is impossible to overcome the drink of the Earth, and it is impossible to stop the war alone, Steve tells her. I don't have time to listen to this talk because I have to go and deliver the book to my commander. Indeed, the day comes when they are about to leave. The queen stops her daughter and says to her, I won't stop you, but I warned you about humans for the last time because they don't deserve sacrifices. If you leave the island, you can't come back to it again. She promises her that she will rid humanity of evil and Ares. Here she takes the sword through which she can kill Ares. Afterward, they leave the island. When they reach the city, Steve tells her, I have to deliver the book to the commander. But Diana keeps searching for the war to save humanity. She asks him, where is the war? Could it be that you lied to me? But Steve notices everyone staring at Diana's clothes because they were strange to them. Steve asks his assistant to handle her clothing matters and get her different outfits. Steve's assistant shows her several outfits, But Diana doesn't like any of them because she can't fight in them and doesn't know how to walk in such clothes. However, she finally chooses an outfit resembling a detective's attire, but insists on carrying her sword, ready for battle. Steve and his assistant tell her that such behavior will make people look at her strangely because it's not normal to carry weapons in public. Eventually, they convince her to hand over her weapons, and she asks them to take good care of them because they are very important to her. As they walk, Steve suspects he is being watched by German forces. He decides to act in an alley, and indeed the Germans appear and start shooting at him. Diana defends him with her hands, and Steve is amazed and surprised by her strength. Diana engages in a fight with them, managing to kill some of them, while the rest flee in fear. Afterwards, Steve and Diana go to the commander, who is holding a meeting. However, all the attendees reject Diana's presence because the meeting is only for men responsible for the war. When the meeting ends and they leave, the president takes the book but doesn't give it much importance because he doesn't understand what it contains. During the meeting, they had agreed to a truce with the Germans, which is why the president didn't pay much attention to the book Steve had brought. Steve tries to convince him about the book's significance, and eventually the president agrees and starts reading it. However, the book is encrypted and written in Sumerian, a language no one understands except Diana. She begins to read it, realizing it is written in multiple ancient languages, all of which she understands because the Amazons know over 100 languages, including Ottoman and Sumerian. Diana reads the book clearly, which reveals that it contains hydrogen gases capable of destroying humans, even if they wear gas masks, because the masks aren't designed to resist this gas. Steve tries to convince them to send forces to destroy the German gas factories, but everyone votes against it because the Germans had signed a peace truce with Britain. At this point, one of the leaders interjects, saying that soldiers' job is to fight and die, and they have no right to discuss state decisions. Diana, angered by this, tells him that their leader fights alongside the soldiers, not just sits on a chair giving orders. Steve quickly pulls her outside, fearing her words might cause trouble. She tells him, "I came here to fight and save humanity from injustice, not to remain silent about your injustices." Steve responds, "We won't stay silent. We'll go to war, but unofficially." She asks him, "How can you organize a war without informing them? And you promised them you wouldn't act without their approval? If you lied to them, that means you lied to me too." Steve takes the lasso of truth, ties it around his hand, and begins explaining all his plans. Since he was truthful, the lasso didn't shock him. Steve realizes they can't go to war alone and need more help. He visits his friend Barbie and asks for assistance. Suddenly, a leader appears and says, "I have soldiers and can support you in this mission." Meanwhile, the German commander kills the president, who was accused of stealing the book, making an example of him to maintain the army's principles. The commander then goes to the doctor, who is frustrated about her book. He reassures her, saying, "I trust you and your abilities, which aren't limited to your book." The doctor becomes motivated and happy, giving him a formula she created that grants him immense strength. After taking the dose, he feels a surge of power, even able to break a gun. Suddenly, the doctor finds the paper with the formula for the gas that melts masks. She conducts an experiment, and indeed the gas melts the mask. The commander is thrilled because this means he can dominate the world. The commander then goes to the leaders who were about to approve the truce between Germany and Britain. He releases the gas and gives them one mask to fight over. One of them manages to wear the mask, but it melts and is useless, resulting in everyone's death. Steve and Diana head to one of the battlefronts, where Diana sees the number of injured and dead due to the war, feeling deep sorrow. She asks Steve about the area, and he explains that it's a British village occupied and controlled by the Germans. When they reach the battlefield, Diana fights alone, overpowering the enemy. All the soldiers are amazed by her strength, becoming motivated to fight alongside her, distracting the enemy. After a long battle, Diana defeats them and liberates the village. The village photographer asks to take a picture of them, including Diana. At this point, Steve's assistant contacts him with information about the location of the German commander planning a party. Steve suggests continuing the mission to kill the commander since he is nearby. Diana believes the commander leading the war is Ares. He is the cause of war and evil upon humanity. They start making a plan to go and take revenge on the leader who is leading the war. Ares, the cause of war and evil upon humanity. They start making a plan to go and take revenge on the German leader. Indeed, they disguise themselves in party costumes and go. Here, Steve sees the doctor and approaches her to extract some information. But suddenly, they hear the sound of a cannon. They realize that the Germans have fired toxic gas on the village they had liberated. Because of this gas, all the soldiers, children, and women in the village die. Diana becomes sad, cries, and starts blaming herself because she killed the German soldiers, and the Germans retaliated against the village. She becomes furious and goes to kill the leader. After a long battle, the leader sees that she is strong and unbeatable. He drinks another capsule of power, and when he gains strength, he attacks her. After a very intense fight, Diana manages to kill him with her sword. She rejoices because she thought the war would stop with the leader's death. But she is shocked to find that the war continues, meaning the one she killed was not Ares, whom she was looking for. Suddenly, she sees one of the commanders, who tells her, "I am Ares, the one you are looking for," and adds, "I am not as evil as you think. I only incite people to kill." Diana becomes furious and starts fighting him. When she strikes him with the sword evaporates completely. She is shocked to learn that Zeus, the ruler, is her father. For this reason, she inherited some powers that the other Amazons do not have. Here, the war between them begins. She binds him with the lasso of truth, but Ares easily escapes from it because he is stronger than her. He strikes her with a powerful lightning bolt, causing a massive explosion. Due to this explosion, Diana loses her hearing. Steve comes to help her and talks to her, but she cannot hear anything he says. Meanwhile, Steve boards the plane carrying the hydrogen gas and decides to sacrifice himself to save humanity. Indeed, he flies the plane and detonates it in a distant location. Diana is deeply affected by Steve's death. She screams and becomes so enraged that she gains immense power. She starts killing anyone who stands in her way. In the end, she manages to kill Ares. When Ares dies, the war in the world ends, and peace prevails over all humanity because she eliminated the instigator of evil. After days and years pass, Diana begins working in civil affairs. But one day, a group of heroes who save the world sends her a message inviting her to join their team. They send her the picture taken of her, Steve, and the other soldiers when they liberated the village. They chose her because of her superhuman strength, and indeed, she agrees to join them. And here is the end of the film. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get more new videos. Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The movie begins to reveal that there is a celestial god named Arishem, the first celestial, who created the first sun that illuminated the entire universe. At that time, life was balanced until strange, predatory creatures from the depths of space appeared, known as deviants, which disrupted everything. So the god Arishem decided to summon the Eternals to restore order and balance to the world. Who are the Eternals? The Eternals are immortal heroes from the planet Olympia, whose sole mission is to eliminate the deviants. The Eternals believed in Arishem until a certain mission. We then see the Eternals in their spacecraft, and they are 10 individuals, each with superpowers, whom we will get to know one by one as the movie progresses. After that, we move to the year 5000 BC. We see a young boy holding a knife and cutting a fish, while his father looks on proudly and calls out to him. But then, one of the deviants appears and devours him. At that moment, the first Eternal appears, Icarus, whose power is that he can fly and emit a deadly beam from his eyes, which he uses to strike the deviant. Then the rest of the Eternals begin to appear one by one. After Icarus, Makari appears, whose power is her incredible speed, allowing her to save people. Then Kingo appears, who can shoot strange but very powerful energy balls from his hands. Next is Gilgamesh, whose strength is unparalleled. Thana, the goddess of war, also appears, showcasing her professional combat skills and her ability to create weapons to aid her in battle. The Eternals manage to defeat the deviants, and Circe approaches the young boy and transforms his small knife into a family heirloom, giving it to him. Their spaceship then appears, and from it emerges Sprite, who may appear small but has powers that allow her to create illusions and vanish. Phastos is introduced as the team's mastermind. The team also includes Druig, who can control human minds, and their leader, Ajax, who can heal any wound. Circe has the ability to transform any solid object into smaller elements like sand, dust, or water. After being introduced to the Eternals and learning about each of their powers, We move to present-day London. We see Cersei filming a commercial in the street about the knife she had given to the young boy, which has since become a family heirloom. At this point, Cersei is working as a history teacher. She heads to work, where Dane is filling in for her until she arrives. It is revealed that there is a romantic relationship between Cersei and Dane, who tells her he has invited her to his birthday celebration that evening. She begins teaching young girls, but an earthquake suddenly occurs, and a large rock is about to fall on one of the girls. Cersei transforms the rock into dust, saving the young girl. The earthquake subsides, and we transition to Dane's birthday party, where he is dancing with Cersei, and they are happy together. Sprite, however, is sad because she is young and cannot experience love like Cersei. Dane, Cersei, and Sprite leave the party and are walking when a strange creature emerges from the water. It is revealed to be a deviant, and it attacks Dane. Cersei transforms the ground into sand and then solidifies it, saving Dane. But the deviant manages to free itself. They try to escape, but the deviant catches up to them. Sprite creates illusions of herself and Cersei to confuse the deviant, but it identifies them and is about to kill Sprite when Ikaris intervenes, saving her with his laser beams. However, this is not enough to defeat the deviant, which attacks them again. A bus is about to overturn on them, but Cersei transforms it into a delicate flower, ensuring no harm comes to them. They notice something unusual about the deviant. It can heal itself, which was not a characteristic of the deviants before. Ikaris, Cersei, and Sprite are puzzled. The deviant utters a single word, flowers, before being defeated by Ikaris. The significance of this word is unclear, but its meaning will likely be revealed later. After the incident, Dane is shocked by everything that has happened and asks Cersei for an explanation. She tells him that she is one of the Eternals, who arrived on Earth 7,000 years ago aboard the Domo spaceship, tasked with a single mission, to eliminate the deviants. Dane is surprised and asks why. Despite their strength and role in protecting Earth, they did not intervene during the war with Thanos or other conflicts. Cersei explains that they were given only one mission, and if they had intervened in every danger over the past 7,000 years, humanity would not have been able to evolve. Cersei, Ikaris, and Sprite then discuss the reappearance of the deviants after such a long time, and why they seem to be targeting the Eternals rather than humans. They cannot find answers to these questions, but Cersei suggests they need to speak with their leader, Ajax. We flash back to 575 BC in Babylon, where Ikaris, Kingo, Thena, Makari, and Gilgamesh are fighting the deviants and protecting the city. Elsewhere, Ajax communicates with the celestial Arishem, expressing her concerns about something unusual on Earth. However, Arishem tells her to stay focused on her mission and not to interfere with the planet. Ajax gathers the rest of the Eternals and discusses the situation. Phastos has invented a device to help humans with agriculture, which he believes will advance human civilization. However, Ajax rejects the invention, and the rest of the team mocks the idea, fearing humans would misuse it. Ajax insists that humanity must develop gradually to avoid future disruptions. Sprite and the other Eternals interact with humans, but a fight breaks out among the people. Druig uses his mind control powers to stop the conflict, but Makari reminds him that they are forbidden from intervening in human disputes, as Thena had previously stated. Thena advises Ikaris to live his life and confess his feelings to Cersei. He takes her advice and goes to Cersei, who is helping women with farming. He confesses his love for her, and she reciprocates his feelings. We then move to the Gupta Empire in 400 BC, where Ikaris and Cersei are getting married, and the entire team is celebrating their union. Returning to the present, the group heads to meet Ajax. Cersei recalls her wedding day and smiles. When they arrive at Ajax's house, they find her dead, her body lying on the ground. Cersei and Sprite grieve, believing that a deviant killed her. Sprite recalls her memories with Ajax and expresses her regret at losing her. Ikaris informs them that the deviant responsible for Ajax's death is the same one they encountered in London, which killed her and absorbed her healing powers, enabling it to heal itself. Cersei mourns Ajax, but the stone that connects Ajax to Arishem transfers to Cersei, allowing her to communicate with him. Arishem asks Ikaris, Sprite and Cersei are together, but Cersei tells them that she managed to communicate with Arishem and that the stone chose her. However, Ikaris is skeptical and asks if she is sure she spoke with Arishem and that it is not Madwari disease. To understand what Madwari is, we go back in time to the year 1521 AD, during a period when humans had advanced along with their weapons. But this development also brought wars and destruction. Druig wants to intervene and stop the war, but Ajak refuses and prevents him, saying, "We do not interfere in human wars. This is part of their evolution." Druig disagrees and believes what is happening is wrong. Suddenly, Thena loses control, attacks her companions, and almost kills Makari. Ajak tries to control Thena's mind but is attacked by her. The rest of the team is also attacked, but Gilgamesh manages to knock Thena unconscious. Ajak heals the team's injuries. When Thena wakes up, she has no memory of what happened. Ajak explains the condition, a disease where one's memories take control, causing involuntary actions. Ajak suggests erasing Thena's memories is the only solution, but Thena cries, refusing to lose her memories and wanting to remember her life. Druig gets angry, accusing Ajak of wanting to erase Thena's memories and allowing humans to kill each other, saying, "We are no different from soldiers. We just follow orders." Druig leaves to live among humans, while Ajak decides not to erase Thena's memories. Gilgamesh takes on the responsibility of protecting Thena, even if it means killing her if necessary. Ajak tells them they have eliminated the deviants and can now live their lives as they wish. Returning to the present, we see Circe, Icarus, and Sprite gathering the team again to fight the deviants. They start with Kingo, who has become a famous Hollywood actor over the past century. Initially enthusiastic about seeing his friends, he refuses to join them after hearing about Ajak's death, preferring to stay with his audience in film projects. However, his manager Karun convinces him by reminding him of the importance of helping family. Kingo agrees and joins the team. They travel to Australia to find Thena and Gilgamesh. Upon arriving, they see a dead deviant outside their house, which Gilgamesh had killed. They inform him of Ajak's death, deeply saddening him. He takes them to Thena, who has another episode of losing control and attacking them. However, they manage to calm her by recalling their shared memories. Circe steps outside, distressed, followed by Gilgamesh, who encourages her to focus and try communicating with Arishem again. Circe successfully contacts Arishem and tells him about Ajak's death and the strange occurrences on Earth. Arishem reveals that these are merely side effects of the flowers. Circe asks about the flowers, realizing it's the same term used by the deviant they fought in London. Arishem then unveils the true purpose of their mission, aiding in the birth of a new celestial. Every billion years, a celestial is born through a process involving the implantation of a seed into a planet. Arishem chose Tiamut to be Earth's celestial. For Tiamut to emerge, he requires vast energy, which he absorbs from intelligent life on the planet. The deviants were initially created to eliminate predators that threatened human populations, ensuring their growth. However, over time, the deviants evolved and became predators themselves, leading to the creation of the Eternals to eradicate them. With the human population now sufficient, the flowers is set to occur, resulting in Earth's destruction. Circe is horrified, asking if Ajak knew about this. She learns that Ajak was aware and had been complicit in similar missions across other planets for millions of years. Circe discovers that their memories of Olympia and past missions were fabricated by Arishem, who created them as synthetic beings and stored their memories for study, ensuring they wouldn't rebel like the deviants. Circe shares this revelation with the team, who are shocked and conflicted. They realize they are not heroes but caretakers, raising human populations to be consumed as energy for celestials. Determined to stop the flowers, they seek Druig, who lives in a secluded village where he controls the minds of its inhabitants. Druig initially refuses to help, frustrated with their mission and their inability to stop the cycle. Suddenly, deviants attack the village. Icarus and Circe fight them but struggle due to the deviant's strength. Gilgamesh intervenes to assist. Thena has another episode attacking Icarus, but Gilgamesh calms her. The deviants begin killing the villagers under Druig's control. Circe convinces Druig to release them and join their cause. Sprite helps Kingo defeat a deviant, while Icarus kills another. Circe transforms a deviant into a tree, surprising everyone with her newfound ability. Gilgamesh saves Thena from a deviant, but is fatally injured. The deviant absorbs his energy, gaining consciousness and speaking for the first time. It reveals its awareness of Arishem's plan and vows to kill the Eternals. The team mourns Gilgamesh's death and buries him. Druig doubts their ability to stop the flowers, as he cannot control Arishem's mind. Circe suggests seeking Phastos's help. Druig warns that Phastos has lost faith in humanity. The story flashes back to 1945 in Hiroshima, where humans exploited the evolution and inventions of Phastos. We see him crying, believing that Druig was right and that his inventions destroyed the planet. We return to the present time as they head to Phastos, who is now married with a child and has decided not to use his powers anymore. But when he sees them trying to hide his son from these people and using fake names, Cersei explains the situation to Phastos, who initially refuses to join them until his friend convinces him. He then agrees, with the first step being to stop the flowers process. They gather together, and since they are reunited, they decide to return to the Domo spaceship. Indeed, they find their ship, where Makkari has been living alone, isolated from the outside world. They begin searching for a way to stop the flowers, and Phastos comes up with a method, creating bracelets that unite their powers into one person, giving them the ability to stop Tiamut. However, they are still uncertain if what they are doing is right. They decide that the strongest among them, their leader after Ajax, should decide. However, Ikaris declares that their leader is Cersei, and she should make the decision. This leads to conflict among them, and they part ways. We flash back to 6 days before Ajax's death, where we see her with Ikaris. She tells him she believes the flowers is wrong, and that they must stand against the Celestials after serving them for so long. Ikaris manipulates her into a conversation and takes her to a place where deviants, previously frozen, have broken free. He throws her to them, leading to her death as they absorb her power and memories. The deviants begin to distribute Ajax's powers among themselves. Afterward, we see Ikaris carrying Ajax's body and placing it in the garden near her home, crying. Back in the present, the time for the flowers process has come. Everyone tries to find a solution to execute their plan, but Ikaris confronts them, confessing that he betrayed them and killed Ajax. He warns them that if anyone tries to stop him, he will kill them too. He leaves, and Sprite joins him because she loves him. The rest are left unsure of what to do. Kingo decides to leave, believing they cannot defeat Ikaris. Phastos comes up with an idea, to take the energy connecting Cersei to the celestial seed within her. He successfully creates the bracelets, and they wear them. They board the spaceship and head to the flower site, where Thena is waiting. She fights the deviants while Cersei begins to execute the plan with the team. Ikaris intervenes, attacking Druig and destroying their ship. At that moment, volcanic rocks are thrown at them, which they try to fend off. They attempt to attack Ikaris, but he is stronger than them. The largest deviant, who killed Gilgamesh, appears, angering Thena, who decides to take him on. She asks Phastos to stall Ikaris while she handles the deviant. Phastos manages to hold Ikaris back, allowing Thena to kill the deviant that killed Gilgamesh, leaving her satisfied. Ikaris escapes Phastos and goes to stop Cersei, but finds himself unable to harm her because he loves her. Instead of killing her, he helps her, overwhelmed by guilt, and ultimately kills himself. The team successfully stops the flowers process. Cersei helps Sprite live as a human and age normally. Everyone returns to their lives, happy, until the sky splits open, and something pulls all the Eternals. It is Arishem who takes them for disrupting his plan. He decides to review their memories to determine if humanity is worth saving. If not, he will punish them. Later we see Druig, Makkari, and Thena aboard their ship when a mysterious figure named Eros appears. He tells them their friends are in danger and that he can help locate them. The scene shifts to Dane Whitman, who opens a box belonging to his ancestors, containing a sword inscribed with, "My destiny is death." As he approaches it, he hears a strange voice asking, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" The scene ends there. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to like the video, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe and activate the notification bell to receive our videos as soon as they are released. See
Hello to all Cinemaster lovers. Hope you enjoy watching. Let's get started. The story begins with a character named Will Graham. We see him inside a house where he encounters the first person and causes a certain artery to be cut, so that person dies slowly. He does this on purpose, to make the person watch his wife being killed. Indeed, he shoots the wife, causing temporary paralysis until she dies. Will used to work as a special agent with the FBI and has an almost supernatural ability. In addition to his incredible intelligence, he can imagine what happened in any crime with 99.9% accuracy. This requires him to imagine himself in the place of the killer or murderer, as we saw earlier. I want to tell you that despite this ability and his incredible intelligence, he has a degree of autism. The crimes he used to solve and imagine greatly affected his psyche. He started having disturbing nightmares, which led him to quit this job, stop investigating crimes, and leave the FBI. Now he only gives crime analysis lectures at an academy affiliated with the FBI to train others to be proficient in crime analysis. Currently, Will is explaining what happened in a crime to the students when Jack Crawford, an FBI agent specializing in behavioral sciences, approaches him for help. Jack informs him that 8 girls from 8 different colleges in Minnesota have been kidnapped. Strangely, they all share similar hair color, body type, height, weight, skin tone, and even age. Moreover, the kidnapper takes them on Fridays, so no one can report or file a case until Monday. When they arrive at the FBI headquarters, Jack shows Will a photo of the last kidnapped girl. Will says they should start with her because if any of the girls are still alive, it's her. If she dies, it will be too late. Indeed, they go to her house, and while talking to her family, Will imagines what happened as if he were standing there. He tells Jack that the kidnapper took her from this spot. Jack then calls his team to come and investigate. Will goes to the room with the kidnapped girl's father, and they are shocked to find a lifeless body on the bed, drenched in blood. When Jack imagines what happened, he realizes the killer brought the girl back and killed her on the bed. Later, Jack's team arrives, and one of them, a woman named Beverly Katz, tells them she found pieces of deer antlers in the wounds on the body. Will explains that deer antlers aid in rapid healing and that the killer for some reason was obsessed with this. He also mentions that the killer seems highly disturbed and is likely to kill another victim. Jack goes to Will's house in Virginia and encounters a stray dog on the way, which he takes in because he loves dogs. That night, Will dreams of the dead girl's body lying next to him and floating, signaling the return of his nightmares. At the lab, the team finds a tiny metal shard in the dress of the corpse. We then see a girl getting out of a car and greeting a worker at a pipe factory. Meanwhile, Jack meets Dr. Alana Bloom, a psychiatrist who is responsible for Will's mental health. She cares deeply for Will and agrees to help ensure that the crimes he solves don't negatively affect him. She insists that Will should only deal with the cases from a distance to avoid being emotionally impacted. Jack agrees. Later, Will and Jack's team examine the corpse and are puzzled by the deep wounds on the body. Will imagines the scene and determines that the victim was hung on deer antlers, shocking everyone. They are even more surprised to learn the killer removed the victim's liver and then placed it back. Will speculates that the killer had a reason for not consuming her liver, possibly due to a defect. It is revealed that the liver had cancer, which is why the killer returned it. Next, we meet Hannibal Lecter. He is an excellent chef, a former surgeon who left surgery to become a psychiatrist. He speaks multiple languages, is skilled in combat, incredibly intelligent, wealthy, and a dream man for many women. We see Hannibal preparing food and getting ready to meet a new patient named Victor. Jack visits Hannibal, introduces himself, and asks for his help in psychological profiling because he is a talented psychiatrist. Dr. Bloom had recommended Hannibal to Jack. Since Bloom suggested him, Hannibal agrees immediately. The next day, Hannibal joins Jack and Will at the academy. Jack informs Will that Dr. Hannibal will assist in profiling the killer, which will be very helpful. Will notices that Hannibal is psychologically evaluating him and analyzing his personality, which annoys him, so he leaves. We then move to another murder in Minnesota. The killer had impaled a girl named Cassie on deer antlers and taken her lungs. Jackal Will says that the government suspects the killer is the Minnesota Shrike. The shrike is a nickname for a bird that impales or pierces its prey and collects their organs, consuming them when it desires. Will mentions that this is not the same criminal who kidnapped or killed the other 8 girls. The killer, dubbed the Shrike, likely has a daughter the same age as the victims. This idea doesn't sit well with him, so he abducts girls resembling his daughter. When he kills them, he uses all their body parts as he believes this honors them. However, if he kills just to take 1 or 2 organs, he feels guilt and cannot forgive himself. Additionally, when he kills, he doesn't leave the bodies in public. He likely has 1 or 2 houses or cabins where he takes the victims' bodies. This implies there is another killer, a copycat, who enjoys consuming human flesh, particularly women. That's why the lungs were taken. At this point, we see Hannibal cutting into some lungs. The next day, Hannibal joins Will as Jack is busy to continue investigating the case. Hannibal brings his own food, which Will eats and finds incredibly delicious. Later, they go to a pipe factory, where Will tells Hannibal they found traces of a specific metal. After investigating the workers' files, Will notices a worker with only a phone number listed, no address, and who has been absent for a while. Will asks an employee if this worker has a daughter around 18 years old with brown hair. She says she doesn't know. Will decides to visit the worker's home using the landline number. Meanwhile, Hannibal calls the worker to warn him that authorities are onto him. When they arrive at the house, they find the worker, Hobbs, has killed his wife and is about to kill his daughter. Will shoots Hobbs multiple times, injuring him and saving the daughter, Abigail, who is taken to the hospital in a coma. Later, Jack shows Will a cabin owned by Hobbs, where he killed the girls. Inside, they find antlers and a dead deer. Jack suggests Hobbs couldn't have done all this without help. Will disagrees, saying it's unlikely Hobbs's daughter helped him. Jack reveals neighbors saw Abigail at the cabin, learning to hunt. They also find red hair, indicating someone else had been there. Will later briefs students on the case, but Jack informs him Dr. Hannibal will now evaluate his mental state. Will resists, but Jack insists, citing Will's excessive shooting of Hobbs. Hannibal evaluates Will and declares him mentally stable and fit to solve crimes, likely to gain his trust. 3 children find a decomposing hand in the woods, leading to the discovery of 9 bodies buried in organic compost. The victims were buried alive, connected to IV lines to feed them, allowing fungi to grow in their bodies. A red-haired woman photographs the crime scene and asks about Will, learning he's a federal consultant. Will visualizes the killer burying the victims alive, but the stress of the case begins to affect him. One of the bodies, still alive, grabs Will's hand, shocking him. Will discusses this with Hannibal, who dismisses it as hallucinations and assures him the visions of Hobbs will fade. The red-haired woman, revealed as journalist Freddie Lowndes, secretly records their conversation. Hannibal confronts her, deletes the recording, and criticizes her unethical behavior. Afterwards, Hannibal invites Jack to dinner, where he serves him pork. Jack enjoys it immensely, but he doesn't realize it's actually human meat. They talk a bit about Will's life, and Jack grows closer to Hannibal. Meanwhile, the forensic team is analyzing a body filled with fungi. Will explains that these people died due to increased blood sugar levels, not because of the fungi itself, but because something raised their sugar levels and reduced their insulin, causing them to lose consciousness. Afterward, they were buried and injected with sugar solutions to feed the fungi planted in their bodies. Will deduces that whoever did this has extensive medical knowledge. Later, someone asks about a specific diabetes medication that reduces blood sugar levels. The pharmacist, however, gives them a medication with the opposite effect, increasing blood sugar levels. He makes the patient sign the prescription and provide their details, claiming it's store policy. His behavior seems suspicious. It's soon revealed that he is responsible for the deaths of 9 victims found with fungi in their bodies. The FBI discovers that 10 diabetic patients who received prescriptions from a pharmacist named Stams have gone missing. When they inquire about him, they find out he hasn't left the area yet. Jack searches his car, breaks the window, and finds a girl inside, barely alive and surrounded by soil. They rescue her. News about this case is later published on a website called Chatter.com. Exposing not only the capture of mentally ill individuals, but also how they're recruited with tempting salaries they can't refuse. This information upsets Will deeply. Hannibal, on the other hand, seems pleased, as if he orchestrated the leak. Jack warns Lowndes, the journalist, that she could face legal trouble and questions her sources. When she denies involvement, he reveals he found a strand of her hair at the crime scene and advises her to stay out of trouble. Afterward, the forensic investigator who trusted her realizes his mistake and admits he was the one feeding her information. Elsewhere, Will, while at the hospital with Abigail, hallucinates seeing a giant black stag. He doesn't understand its significance. Meanwhile, the suspended investigator, who was providing Lowndes with information, confronts her, feeling betrayed. Suddenly, the fugitive pharmacist Stams appears and shoots him in the head. Stams demands information about Will, claiming he wants to help him. Jack learns of this and discovers that Stams is heading to the hospital to bury Abigail and plant fungi in her body to connect with her and uncover the crimes she committed with her father. Stams, disguised as a nurse, kidnaps Abigail. Will confronts him, gets shot in the shoulder, but ultimately stops him. Stams's actions are revealed to stem from his mental illness. Later, a flashback shows Hobbs teaching his daughter how to hunt deer, emphasizing the importance of using every part of the animal. This philosophy extended to his victims, as he believed wasting any part of them was a crime. Abigail, waking from her coma, recalls these lessons. Dr. Bloom visits Abigail, bringing her clothes and music to comfort her. She later informs Jack that Abigail appears unusually normal despite her circumstances. Jack, however, believes Abigail knows the locations of the missing girls' bodies but advises against pressuring her. Will delivers a lecture about the killer, theorizing that the murderer is highly knowledgeable, follows crimes on Chatter.com, and might even warn others before committing his crimes. He suspects the person who called to warn them earlier is the copycat killer they're searching for. Will and Hannibal visit Abigail, hoping to gather information, but she provides none. Returning to her home, they find the word cannibal written on her house. Abigail's friend Marissa reassures her she's not to blame, even if others think so. However, the brother of one of the victims accuses Abigail of luring his sister to her death. Marissa defends Abigail by hitting him with a rock. The next day, Abigail reveals that her father used their cabin to clean up after his crimes, crafting various items from the remains of his victims, which he sold online and in town. He believed in utilizing every part of his victims, considering it a sin to waste anything. Whoever kills becomes a criminal, and he believes that if he does not benefit from every part of the victims he kills, then he has committed a crime. This means that he was eating from them, so he tells her, certainly. Then they find drops of blood falling on her face from the ceiling. They go upstairs and find another corpse, brutally mutilated by Boran Rizlan. This turns out to be Marissa's body. Will contacts Jack and tells him they discovered a new corpse, and the victim is Marissa, who was with Abigail as we saw earlier. Abigail is shocked when she learns about this. Will suspects Nicholas, who is Cassie's brother. Cassie was the last victim killed by Hobbs. However, Jack tells him it's not Nicholas. The person who killed this girl is the same one who killed Cassie, the copycat killer who imitates Hobbs. Later, Jack assigns Hannibal and Bloom to accompany Abigail to her house to collect her belongings and move her out of Minnesota entirely because she is currently in danger, especially after her friend's murder. While at the house, Abigail becomes distraught. When she cuts open one of the cushions, she finds it filled with the hair of the girls her father had killed. She's then surprised by Nicholas, who came to tell her he wasn't the one who killed her friend. As he tries to explain, she becomes anxious and scared, and in a panic, she stabs him in the stomach with a knife, killing him. Hannibal, unaware of what happened, hits Bloom on the head, causing her to lose consciousness. He then goes to Abigail and asks her what happened. She tells him she was defending herself, but is shocked to realize that Nicholas was completely slaughtered, not just stabbed in the stomach. Hannibal tells her that the police will consider her an accomplice to her father's crimes. He offers to help her by hiding the body and not telling anyone. He convinces Bloom and the others that Nicholas attacked Abigail and hit Hannibal and Bloom on the head before escaping. Later, Abigail goes to Hannibal and tells him she wants to tell the truth and explain that she was defending herself. Hannibal frightens her, saying they will accuse her of killing her father and pin all the murders on her. She realizes Hannibal's true nature and confronts him, accusing him of being a serial killer just like her father. She tells him she will keep his secret if he keeps hers. What Abigail doesn't know is that Hannibal is far more dangerous than her father. Meanwhile, Hannibal visits Will's house to feed his dogs. He's seen holding Will's fishing lure and wrapping the line around it as if crafting something. Hannibal then invites Jack over for dinner and serves him rabbit meat. Jack jokes about how the rabbit must have run a lot before Hannibal caught it. However, the audience knows it's not rabbit meat at all. Abigail's relationship with Hannibal deepens, and she starts spending more time at his house, even eating with him regularly. One time, Hannibal gives her a drink laced with a mild sedative to help with her nightmares. She begins to feel strange after drinking it. Bloom visits Hannibal and tells him that Abigail is her patient, and he can't take her out of the hospital without her permission. Hannibal invites Bloom to dinner, and while they eat, Abigail feels as though she's sitting with her parents. The sedative's effect heightens this feeling. On a separate note, Will begins to experience strange episodes. One night, he wakes up walking on a road near his house in Virginia, still in his pajamas. This turns out to be real, not a dream. Police officers find him and return him home. Later, another gruesome crime is discovered involving a man and his wife. Their skin has been flayed, and their backs are displayed like wings. Will deduces that the killer believes he is turning his victims into angels to protect him. Hannibal hosts Jack and his wife for dinner again. Jack's wife compliments Hannibal's cologne, and they share a polite exchange. Meanwhile, Hannibal's heightened sense of smell is revealed to be almost superhuman. This ability allows him to notice subtle details that others miss. The forensic team discovers that the killer has a brain tumor causing hallucinations. The killer sees people as demons and believes he is purifying them by turning them into angels. His next victim is a security guard, whom he flays and displays in a high place. Will realizes that the killer is trying to transform people he sees as evil into angels. Meanwhile, Jack's wife secretly visits Hannibal as a patient, revealing that she is struggling emotionally and has been diagnosed with cancer. She hasn't told Jack yet and doesn't know how to handle the situation. Omarat Alaten is being investigated for claiming that Jaza went insane ever since being diagnosed with cancer, saying it made him kill people. He believes that when he was young, he was saved from a fire by a man who told him that an angel with wings was protecting him, which is why he survived. When asked where he could be found, she says at the farm where he was born. Upon arriving there, they find the killer has taken his own life, skinned himself, and transformed into an angel. Will, at the moment, doesn't understand why the killer did this to himself and is on the verge of losing his mind. He starts feeling worthless, and his mental state begins to deteriorate. Jack reassures him that if he quits working with them, they won't be able to solve most cases easily and that he can't leave them. Afterward, Jack visits Bella because he knows his wife visits her. While there, and talking with her, he senses that she has cancer. She confirms this, saying she was diagnosed with lung cancer 12 weeks ago. Jack remarks that it's strange since she doesn't smoke, and asks if it can be treated. She responds, "No, I'm in stage 4, and there's no stage 5. Jack promises to stay by her side, but she insists on facing the journey alone as she's nearing the end. Jack is left confused and heartbroken over his wife, losing focus on the cases entirely. Will notices this change in him. Moving on to a new and significant case at the psychiatric criminals prison in Baltimore, there's an unconscious criminal named Dr. Gideon, who is transferred to the clinic. When he regains consciousness, he attacks a nurse. After the crime, Will and Jack visit the hospital director, Dr. Chilton, who explains that the criminal freed himself from his handcuffs using a fork hidden in his hand and attacked the nurse in a gruesome manner. When they see the nurse's condition, they find sharp instruments embedded in her body and her eyes gouged out. When Will imagines the crime, he deduces that the killer hid the fork under his skin, freed himself, attacked the nurse, stabbed her throat to silence her, and then gouged out her eyes. Suddenly, Will snaps out of his imagination, unable to bear the horror. Will concludes that this killing method resembles that of the Chesapeake Ripper, as he's the only one who kills in this manner. This was the Chesapeake Ripper's last crime, which occurred 2 years ago with a victim who was an FBI trainee under Jack's supervision. Jack recalls the trainee, Miriam Lass, who was the best in the FBI at the time. Jack had assigned her to the Chesapeake Ripper case because of her expertise in psychology and criminology. He learns that the Ripper killed his last 2 victims within 6 days and suspects he might kill again soon. In the present, Dr. Bloom visits Dr. Gideon to determine if he's truly the Chesapeake Ripper or just pretending. Dr. Bloom, a brilliant psychologist, doubts his claims. Gideon insists he's the Ripper but provides no evidence. Bloom remains skeptical. Meanwhile, Jack confides in Hannibal about his fears of losing his wife, as she's everything to him. Hannibal reflects on the loss of someone dear to him, reminding Jack of Miriam Lass, who was tasked with finding the Ripper but became his last victim. Miriam had deduced that the Ripper was a skilled surgeon due to the precise removal of organs like the liver and thyroid. She also described him as intelligent and psychopathic, making him nearly impossible to catch. In the present, Jack tells Will he's convinced Gideon isn't the Ripper. He believes the Ripper deliberately orchestrated events to make people think Gideon was the killer. That night, Jack receives a call at 2 a.m. When he answers, he hears Miriam Lass apologizing and asking for help before the call ends. The next day, Jack asks Beverly to trace the call, but she finds no record of it, suggesting it came from an untraceable location. Jack realizes it wasn't Lass, but a recording of her voice made by the Ripper before her death. Jack, Will, and Bloom devise a plan to provoke the Ripper into revealing himself. They collaborate with a journalist to publish an article claiming Dr. Gideon is the Chesapeake Ripper. Knowing the Ripper's psychological profile, they anticipate this will anger him enough to commit another crime, giving them a chance to catch him. The journalist agrees, seeing the story as an opportunity to boost her newspaper's fame. The headline reads, "A psychopathic surgeon who is also a brutal serial killer. He killed many victims, and no one suspected him. And since he was imprisoned for 2 years, There were no crimes committed during that time until the last crime he committed in the hospital himself. This confirmed that he is the Chesapeake Ripper. All this talk is to provoke the real killer. Later, Jack receives a strange call at the center. And as usual, my friend, it was Miriam asking for help. This time, they trace the number and locate the place. When they arrive, they find the phone ringing, but it was held by a severed hand. That hand was Miriam's severed hand. Jack is shocked and goes to Hannibal, who then recalls the last time he saw Miriam 2 years ago when she came to him to investigate a suspected patient. While he was getting her the paper with the information, she noticed a drawing of a person impaled in a specific way, resembling the Chesapeake Ripper style. At that moment, she realized he was the Ripper. Hannibal then comes from behind and strangles her until she loses consciousness. After all that, Hannibal attends an opera party where he meets his patient Franklin. If you remember, Franklin appeared in the first scene with Hannibal. Franklin introduces Hannibal to his friend Tobias, who seems very interested in him. This man loves the guitar a lot. He owns a music shop and teaches children how to play the guitar. Everything seems fine until you discover that the guitar strings he uses are not made from ordinary materials, but from the intestines of his victims. He kills girls, takes their intestines, and makes these strings. This introduces us to a new confirmed psychopath for the upcoming episodes. Franklin later visits Hannibal, expressing his desire to be his friend and his frustration at having to book appointments and pay fees to see him. Hannibal tells him it's not possible to be friends, especially since many psychiatrists have already warned him about Franklin's obsessive tendencies. Later, we see Hannibal visiting a retired psychiatrist who treats only him. It's revealed that she doesn't know he's a killer, but helps him process his thoughts. Whenever Hannibal visits clinics, labs, or even law offices, he collects business cards. For instance, after visiting a doctor, he takes their card, follows them out of town, kills them, and harvests their organs. The forensic team finds bodies split in half with extracted organs, wondering why the killer would take a spleen, which isn't useful in organ trafficking. He eats them. Jack then tells Hannibal about a crime they are investigating, and Hannibal joins them. They find a victim in an ambulance, where the killer attempted to remove a kidney but failed. Hannibal, with his surgical skills, stops the bleeding, impressing everyone. This raises suspicions about him. Later, Hannibal hosts a dinner party where he jokingly tells his guests the food is not vegetarian. In reality, it's human meat. Jack and Will investigate a new crime where a victim is found at a music theater with a guitar embedded in their body. Will deduces that the killer played the victim's vocal cords like guitar strings. Tobias becomes the prime suspect, though Will remains unaware. Later, Will visits Hannibal to discuss the case, as he always does. Hannibal likes Will and wants to be his friend, but fears being exposed. Franklin visits Hannibal again, talking about Tobias and mentioning that Tobias once said he wanted to play music on a living person's vocal cords. When a similar crime is reported, Franklin suspects Tobias is the killer. Hannibal later invites Tobias to dinner, where Tobias admits he wanted to kill Hannibal but was impressed by his precision when he followed him after a crime. Hannibal is shocked that Tobias witnessed one of his murders, as he's always extremely cautious. Tobias expresses admiration for Hannibal, but Hannibal warns him about the ongoing investigation into the crime Tobias committed. Tobias remains indifferent. I want them to come to me so I can kill them. Then I'll look for Frank and kill him, and after that, I'll disappear. He tells him he needs his help. As soon as he refuses, he says, I brought you here to kill you. Don't worry. I didn't poison the food because I don't like to disrespect food, and this isn't the way I kill my victims willingly. Before Tobias leaves, Will arrives. Tobias hides, and Hannibal talks to Will about the new case. Hannibal confronts him and tells him Tobias's location and that he's very suspicious of him because he knows Tobias will go to him. Therefore, Tobias will kill him because he wants to kill the police chasing him. That way, he gets rid of Will because he feels Will is close to catching him. He loves Will, but he also doesn't want to get caught, so he's not going to let it go. The next day, Will takes a couple of officers and goes to Tobias's place. He tells him they're there to question him about the man killed in the music theater. While they're talking, Will feels like he hears someone outside. When he checks, there's no one there. He takes a couple of pills and goes back inside. When he goes back, he doesn't find the officers with him. He keeps looking for them until he goes down to a basement and finds a lot of human remains. He finds one of the officers killed with barbed wire. Suddenly, Tobias comes from behind to kill him with the wire. Will fires a shot that hits Tobias in the ear, and the gunshot sound disorients Will because the gun was so close to his ear. Tobias approaches him. Meanwhile, Hannibal is with Franklin, and Tobias arrives and tells them what happened. Franklin tells him to surrender because he's been exposed. Then it escalates. Hannibal tells Franklin to leave now, but he doesn't listen. Tobias tries to strangle Franklin, saying, "Believe me, you're not alone. I'm with you." Tobias then kills Franklin. Tobias pulls out his weapon and attacks Hannibal. They fight until Hannibal breaks Tobias's bones. Tobias is tough, though. They keep fighting until Hannibal gives him a blow to the neck that knocks him out. Then he hits him on the head with a statue and kills him. When Jack and the team arrive, Jack asks, "Why was Tobias at your place?" Hannibal says he came to kill Franklin. And indeed, he did. He broke Franklin's neck and was going to kill us too. This makes Jack suspect Hannibal even more. But Hannibal doesn't get arrested because it was self-defense. He then goes to his therapist. A few days later, Will, Jack, and the team head to West Virginia, not for a vacation, but to investigate a new murder. This time, the crime is gruesome because the killer collected many corpses, stacked them, and made a statue out of them. At the crime scene, Will starts imagining what happened. He figures out the killer used buried corpses from years ago, except for the last one, which was fresh. The killer placed it as the centerpiece of his statue. Will suddenly finds himself at Hannibal's place and is very confused about how he got there. He says he doesn't even feel himself sometimes, and often doesn't know where he is. He even hallucinates. Hannibal tells him it's because of the brutality of the crimes he's seeing and that his mind can't handle it. When Will asks Hannibal to examine his brain, Hannibal assures him there's nothing wrong with it. He says the problem is psychological due to the crimes Will is investigating, to the point where he might turn into a criminal himself. You might feel Hannibal is hiding something. This man's mind is not easy to figure out. Will goes to Jack and asks if anything happened yesterday while he was imagining the crime. Jack says no. Will is puzzled and doesn't tell Jack what's happening to him. Later, Will explains the last crime to the students, saying all the bodies in the statue were from years ago, except the last one, which was freshly killed. They count the bodies and find 17. The killer is exposing himself to the public. The problem is that no one is found at the scene. Will was just hallucinating. But he tells Dr. Bloom he was practicing the explanation to avoid looking bad. The next day, Jack calls Will, Dr. Bloom, and Hannibal, telling them they found Nicholas Boyle's body. This is the man who attacked Abigail at her house and was killed. Hannibal is happy because they've hidden the body. Jack says they found it buried in a snow, so it's still intact. He wants Abigail to see it and identify it, even though Dr. Bloom objects, saying it will affect Abigail negatively. But Jack insists because he suspects her. They bring Abigail from the hospital and she identifies the body, feeling accused by Jack. She cries and leaves. Back to our crime. After analyzing what happened, they suspect someone they investigated years ago. When they go to arrest the criminal, he's waiting for them at his house. He confesses to all his crimes, saying he's killed 51 people so far. He says his first victim was his girlfriend who betrayed him. Jack asks why he turned himself in. Will tells him they found out his girlfriend was pregnant with his child, not her husband's. She left him after finding out because she suspected he was mentally unstable. The man is shocked. Will then has a vision, suspecting Abigail, but he's not sure. He goes to Hannibal, who confirms it, and says he hid the body to protect Abigail. Hannibal justifies this by saying if the crime was pinned on Abigail, Jack would blame her for all her father's crimes. Will believes him, especially since he cares for Abigail and sees her as his own godfather. And Hannibal is like her spiritual fathers, you know. The next day, Hannibal tells Abigail that he knows what she did. She admits that she felt him knowing. But what no one else knows is that she was the one helping her father and luring all those girls to him so he could kill them. She explains that she had to do it because if she didn't, her father would have killed her. Hannibal tells her he had been waiting for her to say this for a long time because he was sure of it. Now, let's move to the new crime scene. We see a woman in her court, hearing a strange sound. Suddenly, someone pulls her under the bed. At that moment, Will tells Hannibal that he no longer feels time at all. He suddenly finds himself in a completely different place and time without knowing what happened. He tells Hannibal that this loss of time and awareness is very dangerous because he might have done something he doesn't even remember now, like perhaps committing a crime he has no memory of. It feels like Hannibal wants to tell him that he is a criminal and has committed many crimes. Hannibal sedates Will for an hour. Indeed, he sees things clearly from his perspective. But when Hannibal looks at the clock, he notices that the numbers on the clock are outside the circle. However, Will tells him otherwise. The next morning, Will was fishing. When he got home and started cutting the fish, he found a lot of blood coming out. Suddenly, he realizes he killed the girl he had just seen a while ago, disfigured her, and burned her. He enters a state of panic. When he leaves the place, he finds Jack and the team. At that moment, he discovers that he had imagined the crime we just. But that's not the issue. The issue is when he got there and how. Jack then asks him what happened and why he was in that state after imagining the crime. Will tells him he was a bit stressed. Jack retorts that he has seen him stressed many times. But this wasn't mere stress. You were in a state of extreme panic. Jack doesn't believe Will's words but is forced to take him to another crime scene to help them. Will informs them that from the way this killer murdered the girl, he is mentally ill. However, the motive for the murder is entirely unclear. Later, Will goes to Hannibal and tells him that the woman he saw felt so real that he thought he was the actual killer. Will says he doesn't feel himself at all anymore and feels something is wrong. Hannibal tells him that to assure him he is fine and that his issue is merely psychological, he will take him to Dr. Hens, his friend. After conducting scans, Hannibal tells Hens he smells inflammation in Will's brain. When they check the scans, they find that his right hemisphere is entirely inflamed, which is a significant issue requiring treatment. Hannibal tells Hens he doesn't want Will to know because it will affect his psyche. He decides to take care of him until he gets better. Hens agrees and tells Will he is fine and there's nothing wrong with him. At that moment, Will is convinced he is mentally ill and that there's no brain issue at all. Later, Jack visits Hannibal and talks to him about Will. He notices that Will hasn't been well lately. Jack says he conducted many tests and Will's brain is fine, meaning he has a psychological illness. Meanwhile, Will goes home and finds blood and a girl under the bed. When he tries to grab her hand, her skin peels off in his hand. Suddenly, she disappears entirely, as if she evaporated. The next day, Will goes to Hannibal and tells him everything. Hannibal tells him that the girl he saw is the same one who attacked the other girl. Will is convinced it's real, but Hannibal insists it isn't. Will tells him that he hasn't felt this unwell in a long time and that he has felt off for a while. He admits that even if he committed crimes, it would be 1 or 2 or 3 at most. But all of them? Impossible. Someone must have set him up, and he will find out who. He warns Jack that the criminal is very close to them and knows everything, every detail about the crimes. This means it's someone from within their circle. Jack doesn't believe him. Later, Will is taken in a transport vehicle to the hospital for criminally insane individuals, where Dr. Gideon was once held. During the ride, Will escapes. Meanwhile, Bloom is discussing Will's drawings with Hannibal. Hannibal remarks, he used to draw them perfectly. Jack says this might mean Will is pretending to be ill to get out of the case. After the men leave Hannibal's place, Hannibal finds Will there. Will tells him everything, saying someone has been setting him up for a long time. He asks Hannibal to take him to Hobbs's house. They go there. Will starts piecing everything together, analyzing everything that happened and who has been with him all along. He connects the dots and finally discovers that there's only one person responsible. He realizes that Hannibal is the culprit. He points a gun at him, saying he is certain Hannibal orchestrated everything. Unfortunately, Jack arrives at that moment because Hannibal had reported Will. When Jack sees the scene, he shoots Will in the shoulder. After that, he goes to the hospital. And here, he doesn't tell Jack that the doctors discovered that Will has brain inflammation like Bloom said. They will start the treatment phase after Will recovers from the gunshot wound. He goes to the hospital for criminals with mental illnesses. There, Hannibal comes to him and says, "How are you, Will? How are you doing?" And here the series ends. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Welcome to CinePro, where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. Our movie begins with a young man named Cal and his pregnant sister Becky, who is about to give birth. Both are on a road trip, eating food from a restaurant along the way. Becky starts feeling dizzy, So Cal stops the car near a church. Becky opens the car door to vomit due to her pregnancy. She feels slightly better and talks to her brother. While they're talking, they hear a child screaming for help, calling out from a field of very tall grass. They get out of the car and head toward the source of the voice. Becky calls out loudly to the child, asking if he can hear her. The child responds that he can hear her but has been stuck in the field for days and can't find his way out. He also mentions that he's not alone and that there's a woman with him who's behaving strangely. Becky is puzzled and wonders what's happening in the field. Cal enters the field to rescue the child, ignoring his sister's suggestion to wait and think before going in. Cal walks deeper into the tall grass, and Becky follows him, trying to call for help on her phone. However, the signal in the area is very weak, and the call gets disconnected. Unbeknownst to Becky, the field separates her from her brother, leaving her surrounded by nothing but tall grass. Cal continues to call out for the child but gets no response. He starts to regret entering the field, his foot sinking into the mud. He also realizes he left his glasses in the car, making it hard for him to see clearly. Cal tells Becky that something inexplicable and wrong is happening in the field and suggests they return to the car to stay safe. However, before they can do so, they try to find a way to move together without getting separated. Cal suggests they jump simultaneously to see each other above the grass. Although Cal is concerned for his pregnant sister, they have no other option. They jump, briefly spotting each other, and feel hopeful when they realize they are close. But when they jump again, something strange happens. Becky sees her brother far away from where he was just a moment ago, without either of them moving. Both are baffled and unable to explain what's happening. It turns out the field moves them from one place to another without them physically moving. As the sun sets, the siblings are still lost and unable to find each other. Their voices and energy begin to fade due to exhaustion, especially for Becky, who is pregnant. Suddenly, a strange man named Ross appears to Becky from the grass, introducing himself and claiming that the lost child and the woman with him are his wife and son. He advises them to stay together to survive the ordeal. Becky moves with Ross and comes across scattered belongings of other people in the field. Night falls, and Cal is still unable to find his sister, losing hope and feeling frustrated until the child, Tobin, emerges from the grass and approaches him. Tobin tells Cal that he can find what he's looking for if it's dead, because the field doesn't move the dead. He also mentions a large, dark rock that can help locate others in the field. Cal follows Tobin while Ross and Becky move through the grass elsewhere. Tobin and Cal reach the massive rock, and when Tobin touches it, he feels a strange energy and asks Cal if he wants to touch it too, as it brings a sense of peace. Before Cal can touch the rock, he hears Becky screaming. Tobin apologizes, saying it's too late. Cal doesn't understand what Tobin means by too late and rushes into the field to find his sister. Tobin tries to stop him, knowing Cal's approach won't work, but Cal ventures deeper into the field. Meanwhile, a man named Travis is searching for Becky and her brother in the outside world, as they've been missing for days. Travis, who seems to care deeply for Becky and might be the father of her unborn child, drives around showing people Becky's picture, asking if anyone has seen her. He eventually spots a red car parked near the church and recognizes it as Becky's car by the license plate. The car is filthy, and the food inside has rotted, attracting insects and maggots, which is odd because Becky and Cal have only been in the field for a day, yet it seems like days have passed outside. Travis enters the church to look for them but finds nothing. Outside, he discovers Becky's book on the ground near the tall grass and suspects she and her brother are inside. He enters the field to search for them but quickly becomes trapped like everyone else. Night falls, and he still hasn't found Becky, growing increasingly worried. He encounters Tobin, who seems to know Travis's name and purpose without being told. Tobin offers to lead him to Becky, but cryptically asks if Travis truly wants to see her. Determined, Travis follows the boy, who leads him to Becky, lying lifeless on the ground. By daylight, Tobin is outside the field with his family and dog, wearing clean clothes and looking well-groomed. He tells his mother that someone is calling his name loudly. The dog runs into the field, and Tobin follows, forcing Ross and his wife, Natalie, to enter the grass to retrieve their son. It's revealed that Tobin is calling out to himself because they've met before. The field not only moves people around, but also manipulates time. Tobin cries for help, and Becky and Cal hear him, just as they did at the beginning of the movie. They enter the field to rescue the unknown boy, not realizing it's Tobin. This time, however, Becky hears Travis calling her name. Surprised, Becky and Cal wonder how Travis is in the field and how he got there. Tobin calls out, warning that something killed his dog. Travis advises the siblings to follow Tobin's voice to meet up, as the field doesn't move dead things like Tobin's dog. Finally, the siblings reunite in the field, now accompanied by Travis. Becky asks Travis how he arrived at the field before her brother, and they couldn't find any explanation for what was happening. The timeline in the field was in a state of chaos due to the past interfering with the present, and even the future returning to the past. Time entered a complex loop, and the three of them, along with Tobin, united to find a way out of the field. While moving, they saw Becky's phone ringing, and the caller was an unknown person who said, "Don't let Cal harm Travis and always stay together. We can't make the same mistake again." None of the four understood anything, and then Ross found them, accompanied by his wife. He promised to help them find a way out, revealing that he knew how to leave the field. He led them to the large rock in the center of the field, saying that anyone who touched it would know the way out. Cal was about to touch the rock, but his sister stopped him, saying they shouldn't trust Ross. Travis attacked Ross, knocking him to the ground, and told the others to run. Ross freed himself and grabbed his wife, Natalie, pressing her head until it exploded from the pressure, killing her. When the others saw what happened to Natalie, they realized something unnatural was happening with Ross, so they ran as fast as they could until they reached an abandoned building where they hid. Inside the building, they tried to make sense of everything happening. Cal blamed Travis for everything, leading to an argument that stopped when they saw Ross entering. They climbed the stairs to the roof, where Travis and Cal saw the church and realized it was near their location. They remembered a long hole that could lead them out of the field. While moving on the roof, Travis lost his balance, but Cal caught him before he fell. However, hatred consumed Cal, and he left Travis behind. Ross chased Cal and his sister through the field, eventually catching Cal after a pursuit. Ross killed him, and Travis regained consciousness after his fall. He returned to the field, found Becky, and expressed regret for leaving her before she ended up in the field. As they talked, Becky screamed because Ross had grabbed her. Travis tried to save her, but Ross threw Becky to the ground and assaulted her. Fortunately, Becky found scissors on the ground, stabbed Ross in his right eye, and ran away. Heavy rain began to fall, and Becky noticed she was surrounded by faceless people with heads made of grass. These people dragged her to the large rock, but Becky lost consciousness due to her ordeal. When she woke up, she saw the rock, took out her phone, and called her own number saying, "Don't let Cal harm Travis." It turned out this was the source of the unknown number that had been calling Becky in the past. Becky realized the field was a time loop. She saw Travis in the past while she lay unconscious on the ground. Travis noticed that the baby Becky was carrying had died. Tobin appeared and revealed that his father had killed the baby. Enraged, Travis called out to Ross, determined to kill him. Suddenly, Ross appeared behind Travis and attacked him. The two fought, and Ross found a broken bone in the mud, using it to stab Travis in the stomach. Ross claimed he was the only one who wanted to free the group from their suffering. Travis fell to the ground, bleeding to death. Ross then grabbed his son, Tobin, and forced him to touch the rock. However, Becky regained consciousness and stabbed Ross again, blinding him. Travis also regained consciousness, grabbed Ross's head, and repeatedly slammed it against the rock. He strangled Ross with grass vines, finally killing him. Afterward, Travis found Becky lying lifeless on the ground. He carried her body and cried over the loss of his beloved. Realizing he had lost everything, Travis touched the rock. Tobin tried to stop him but failed. When Travis touched the rock, his body merged with the grass and the rock, gaining knowledge of everything happening in the field and how to escape it. He told Tobin the way out and gave him a necklace to prevent Becky and Cal from entering the field in the future. At that moment, Tobin was transported through time and space, finding himself inside the church. When he exited, he saw Becky and Cal approaching the field. Tobin rushed to warn them not to enter, as they would never leave alive. To convince them, he showed them the necklace Travis had given him. Becky recognized the necklace as her own and realized something unnatural was happening in the field. She told Cal they should return to the car and leave, taking Tobin with them. They drove away from the field, stopping the time loop that had been occurring there. In the end, Travis remained in the field forever, sacrificing his life so his beloved could live. If you liked today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all new updates. See you in the next video.
Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The series begins with a little girl named Luna who lives a peaceful life and plays in the garden of her house. Suddenly, a strange person with an obscured face descends from the sky. We learn that he is an immortal being, and he offers to change her destiny. He takes her and flies with her, showing her the stars and the moon. Luna feels happy, and at the end of the day, she asks him if she will see him again. He tells her they will meet again in 10 years under the light of the moon. Years pass, and we see Luna as a grown-up, sleeping in the spot where she met the immortal person 10 years ago. Her friend doesn't believe her and tells her it must have been a dream, but Luna is certain she will meet him again. At night, her family comes to her with gifts for her 18th birthday. Suddenly, a strange mark appears on her face, and a beam of light emerges from her, reaching the moon. Everyone is shocked by what happened, and no one understands it. Demons in the form of monsters appear out of nowhere and surround her. A mysterious woman arrives and the monsters flee in fear of her. Luna learns that the woman is a demoness. Guards try to attack the demoness, but she absorbs their souls and traps them in magical stones. Luna's family falls to the ground, and the demoness lifts Luna into the air, intending to absorb her soul as well. Suddenly, a young man with a sword arrives and saves her. We learn his name is John, a demon slayer. He begins to fight the demoness, but she is stronger than him and knocks him to the ground. As she is about to finish him off, his master arrives, and it turns out the master and the demoness know each other. The master casts a spell on John, transforming his appearance. John flies into the air, surrounded by immense spiritual energy, and strikes the demoness, shocking her with his power and causing her severe injury. She is forced to flee, but John faints afterward. News of the incident reaches the king's palace, and he summons a man named Chong to investigate the girl who emitted the strange light and find out why the demons attacked her. Chong visits Luna's house and asks to meet her. He questions her about the reason behind the appearance of a powerful demoness targeting an ordinary girl like her. Luna says she doesn't know why and insists it's his duty to capture the demoness. Chong becomes angry at her boldness and challenges her to come to the palace to prove if she has the ability to fight demons. Later, Luna talks with her friend, expressing her suspicion that John might be the immortal person she met 10 years ago who came to save her. At night, while walking in the market, she sees John on a boat and runs to him, boarding at the last moment before it departs. She thanks him for saving her and asks him to take her on a sea tour. She also asks if he is the immortal person who appeared 10 years ago, but he tells her he is always busy hunting demons. Luna begins to think she imagined it. John stands under the moonlight and tells her to wait for him before jumping into the sea and swimming away. Luna grows worried when he takes too long to return, calling out for him. Eventually, he emerges with a chest, and Luna is surprised that, despite being in the water, his clothes are not wet. She feels he might be the immortal person, hiding it to protect her. John asks her to close her eyes, opens the chest, and pulls out a magical pearl. He crafts a bracelet from it, places it on her hand, and dips her hand into the water. Luna is astonished as the sea changes color, reflecting the moon and stars. John instructs her to always wear the bracelet. Afterward, he returns to his master and reports that he has fulfilled the task of giving Luna the magical bracelet. The master reveals that Luna possesses unique spiritual energy, and that since her birthday, demons have been pursuing her to claim her soul. He emphasizes John's mission to protect her. At night, Luna notices the bracelet protects her from demons and evil spirits. The next day, she meets John and thanks him for the bracelet, asking him to accompany her to Chong's palace. Although John initially refuses due to his duties, his master orders him to go with her. Luna is happy to be closer to him and to confirm if he is the immortal person she has been searching for. John, curious, asks his master why he must go to the palace. The master explains that a sacred sword is there, which John must find to defeat the demons. Meanwhile, the demoness is seen absorbing the souls of monsters and transferring the energy to her child, aiming to make him the most powerful being. She decides to absorb Luna's energy. The next day, Luna goes to Chong's palace, where there is a test with many participants. She waits for John, but he doesn't show up, so she enters alone. A nun announces that the first test is to identify a demon hiding among the participants. Fear spreads and everyone begins to suspect one another. A woman named Shia casts a spell, revealing one of the participants as a demon. The demon attacks, but Shia strikes him down. As she approaches him, Luna asks her not to kill the demon, but Shia ignores her and finishes him off. They discover another demon is still hiding, and Shia suspects Luna because she defended the demon. She casts a spell on Luna to expose her, but suddenly a demon appears from behind and attacks Luna. John arrives just in time to save her and hands her a sword to kill the demon. Although Luna is scared, John encourages her until she takes the sword and strikes the demon with her eyes closed, surprised to find she has defeated it. The nun declares Luna has passed the first test and advances to the next round, giving her the Demon Hunter emblem. Luna is overjoyed and thanks John for his help, but Chong arrives and tells her she must rely on herself and cannot succeed with others' help. He takes the emblem from her and gives her another chance to prove her abilities. The nun leads them to their quarters, and Luna is thrilled to become a demon hunter. However, Xia feels jealous of her. At night, Luna wanders the palace and sees someone training, impressed by his strength and skill, as he cuts down trees with a single strike of his sword. She assumes he is a fellow trainee and approaches him to talk. John appears and tells her the man is a high priest, surprising Luna. She apologizes for not recognizing him and asks him to train her. The priest is impressed by her courage and demonstrates a move, telling her to train until she can perform it, or else she will be expelled from the palace. He leaves and John decides to help her. He takes her to a magical place to train, gives her a sword, and begins teaching her how to fight. John is amazed by her talent and how quickly she learns. Days pass and Luna continues to train, growing stronger until she becomes skilled in sword fighting. She returns to the palace and sees a maid taking poison pills. Luna saves her at the last moment and learns that Xia has been bullying the maid, which is why she wanted to end her life, and Luna got angry and went to yell at her, telling her to stop bullying the maid or she would regret it. She mocked her and challenged her to a fight, saying that if she won, she would follow her orders. Luna was forced to agree. John found out what happened and was worried about Luna because Xia was strong, but Luna insisted on completing the challenge, confident she would win. The next day, Luna prepared for the fight. At the same time, Chong demanded to fight John to test his strength. The challenge began, and Luna tried to defend herself, but Xia was skilled in martial arts and had a magical whip, which she used to strike Luna, knocking her to the ground. The maid felt guilty because Luna was hurt because of her and begged her to withdraw from the fight. But Luna refused, enduring the pain and standing to continue. She remembered John's training and gathered her strength, using a move she had seen the priest perform. Xia was surprised and unable to block the strike, falling to the ground. Everyone was shocked by what happened, and Luna succeeded in winning the challenge. The maid ran to her, thanking her for defending her. Meanwhile, John was fighting Chong. Their strength was equal, but John managed to push him out of the ring, winning the challenge. He was surprised to find that Luna had also won. The priest praised her for increasing her strength in such a short time and offered to grant her a wish. Luna asked him to give the maid a chance to become a martial arts student like her. The priest agreed and told them to rest because the next test would be difficult and they would do it together. That night, John celebrated with Luna, and the maid cooked their favorite meal. They all sat together, eating and enjoying themselves. The next day, they began the test, which required them to find a magical firebird. They walked through the forest, and Luna started hallucinating because of the fog, recalling the immortal person she had met 10 years ago. Suddenly, she saw a feather and snapped out of the hallucination. They followed it until they saw the bird. Luna approached to catch it, but the bird sensed her, perched on her hand, then turned into a fireball, burning her hand. John quickly took it from her and sealed it with an incantation. He scolded her for putting herself in danger. Luna was happy he cared for her, but noticed he was in pain. She saw his hand and was shocked to find it burned by the fire. She tried to take the ball from him, but he refused. The ball exploded, knocking him unconscious. The priest arrived, saying his condition was critical, and they took him to the palace for treatment. Luna felt guilty because he was injured because of her. She decided to search for a magical herb to heal him. She walked through the forest until she reached the herb's location, injuring herself to make it appear. She took it and prepared to return to the palace, but heard a strange sound. Suddenly, a demoness appeared, attacking her and throwing her into the sea. A wave rescued Luna, placing her on the shore. A man dressed in white appeared, standing on the water. He was also a demon and told her to leave his territory. Using sound magic, he began fighting the demoness. Surprised by his power, she fled. He approached Luna, saw the rare herb with her, cast a spell to paralyze her, took the herb, erased her memory, apologized, and disappeared. He returned to the sea, using the herb to heal his sick brother. Luna returned to normal, shocked to find the herb gone, and cried. John comforted her, assuring her he was fine and didn't need it. They returned to the palace. Xia accused Luna of betraying them and selling the herb to the demon. John decided to prove her innocence and retrieve the herb. He asked Luna about the demon's appearance, but she couldn't remember. The next day, they went to the forest to search for him. Suddenly, the demon appeared as a spider, attacking Luna and strangling her with his web. John defended her and they fought him. Luna helped and they managed to defeat him, but he escaped. The water demon appeared, finishing him off. Luna saw him but didn't recognize him because her memory was erased. John was suspicious of him. They returned to the palace without the herb. John asked the priest to punish him instead of Luna. The priest ordered him to clean the barn. As John prepared to carry out the punishment, he had a vision of his master, who reminded him of the beast that entered the palace for him and urged him to find the legendary moonsword quickly. He also warned him to stay away from Luna, saying they couldn't be together or they would get hurt, as happened in the forest. John refused because he had feelings for her. The master cast a spell on him, saying that whenever he tried to get close to Luna, the spell would activate, causing him pain. John returned to the palace, where Luna was waiting to help him clean. The water demon accompanied them, but he and John didn't get along, constantly arguing and making a mess. Luna got angry and scolded them to stop fighting. Suddenly, a magical book fell from the library, cleaning the place on its own. The three were surprised, and the book pulled them inside, transporting them to another world. Luna was amazed, wandering through the market. The water demon gave her a flower, making her happy and grateful. John felt jealous because he was trying to get close to her. Meanwhile, Shia was in the forest when the demoness appeared, strangling her, but then releasing her, saying they were on the same side. They agreed to get rid of Luna. Later, John told Luna the truth about the water demon, accusing him of stealing the magical herb. Luna was shocked by his words. When she left him, he collapsed, writhing in pain because of the master's spell. Luna confronted the water demon, asking why he deceived her and stole the herb. He admitted he did it to save his brother and apologized for hiding the truth. He asked for a drop of her blood. Luna agreed, cutting her finger. The demon was surprised she agreed without questioning his reason. Luna said she trusted him and knew he was kind. The demon was moved by her words, promising to repay her. They heard someone approaching, and Luna asked him to hide. Shia arrived with guards, searching for the demon but couldn't find him. Chong arrived, threatening Luna with a sword to reveal the demon's location, but she refused. The demon saw what was happening and came out to save her. Chong attacked him, but a masked figure appeared, throwing a smoke bomb and escaping with the water demon. When they reach the forest, it becomes clear that he is John, and they thank the devil, saying he will help remove the spell from his body. He casts a counterspell on him and says the curse has been temporarily lifted, warning him to be careful. He is advised to inform his master of what happened. When he does, the master scolds him for disobeying orders, putting himself and Luna in danger. The master decides to cast a stronger curse on him, leaving the John in pain. Luna goes to check on him, but encounters someone who mocks her, accusing her of causing trouble for John and suggesting she stay away from him. However, Luna asserts that John is her friend and that she will never abandon him. If he needs her, she will always be there to help him. John overhears her, is moved by her words, hugs her, and tells her he will never leave her either. From a distance, someone watches them, feeling jealous and harboring more resentment toward Luna. She then meets with a demoness, expressing her willingness to do anything to get rid of Luna. The demoness gives her a magical fire orb and instructs her to use it to return things to chaos. She uses the orb, unknowingly causing a massive fire that traps Luna and a servant in the flames. The guards attempt to extinguish the fire with water, but fail because the fire is enchanted. Luna tries to break the spell's seal, but her power is insufficient. John learns she is trapped inside and risks his life to save her. When he grabs her hand, Luna feels her spiritual energy grow stronger, enabling her to break the seal and extinguish the fire. The servant thanks her for saving his life and gives her the magical herb she had been searching for, explaining that his family has passed it down for generations. Luna thanks him. The priest arrives and gathers all the students to investigate the cause of the fire. Luna gives him the herb, surprising him that she was able to find it, causing him to momentarily forget about the fire. He uses the herb to create a spell to restore his spiritual strength. After completing it, he collapses from exhaustion. Guards arrest Luna and the John, accusing them of poisoning the herb to kill the priest. They are imprisoned, leaving Luna shocked. The John reassures her that the truth will come out and that their innocence will be proven. Meanwhile, the assistant tries to heal the priest and remove the poison. He asks Chong to take the priest's place temporarily until his health improves. Chong is delighted, revealing that he orchestrated the poisoning to take the priest's position. Chong gathers the students and announces that Luna will be sentenced to death. A servant defends her, declaring her innocence, but no one believes her. Meanwhile, someone visits Luna in prison, taunting her that her end is near. She takes Luna to a secluded place, binds her hands and feet, and tortures her, confessing her infatuation with John and her intent to eliminate Luna to clear her path. She summons the demoness, claiming she has fulfilled their agreement, hands over Luna, and leaves. Later she visits John, convincing him that she persuaded Chong of her innocence and that Luna deceived him. Chong agreed to release John on the condition that he refrains from using his spiritual powers. John pretends to believe her until he is freed, but it turns out he was aware of her plan. He tells her he could never love her and traps her in a magical place before rushing to save Luna. At that moment, the demoness attempts to absorb Luna's soul. John arrives just in time to free her. Luna is overjoyed to see him. John tries to fight the demoness, but is overpowered and injured. Luna, fearing for his safety, urges him to escape and leave her behind. He refuses, declaring he would rather die with her. As the demoness prepares to attack them, a water demon suddenly appears to defend them, stating that he will not allow her to harm his friends. The demoness laughs, pointing out that he can only use his full power in water and is powerless on land. A servant arrives with a water container, casting a spell to make it rain. The demoness, afraid, retreats, knowing she cannot defeat him under these conditions. Luna, exhausted, cannot return to the palace for fear of execution. The water demon takes her to his realm under the sea. When Luna awakens, she is happy to see that John worried about her. He tells her he cannot live without her, kisses her forehead, and they sit together under a sacred tree. The water demon is astonished as the tree, dead for centuries, comes back to life, attributing its revival to their love. The tree possesses healing powers capable of curing any poison. The water demon creates a path for them to use the tree's power to heal the priest. He gives Luna a necklace, promising to help her whenever she needs him. Luna thanks him, and he opens a portal to return them to their world. Meanwhile, a servant discovers that Chong poisoned the priest and confronts him. Chong confesses, intending to eliminate the servant, but the priest, now healed, intervenes. It turns out this was part of a plan by Luna and John to expose Chong. Chong is arrested, and the priest orders his imprisonment, expressing sorrow as he had regarded Chong as a son, only for him to betray him. This clears Luna and John's names. Luna decides to confront her tormentor. John takes her to a place where they can settle their differences. Luna defeats her, but chooses to forgive her this time. John warns her that if she tries to harm Luna again, she will regret it. He then takes Luna away. The next day, a trial is held. Chong confesses that she helped him in his scheme. The priest discovers that one of them caused the fire. Upon searching them, he finds a magical orb with Chong, revealing that she planted it on him. Chong tries to defend himself, accusing her of collaborating with the demoness, but no one believes him. Enraged, he attempts to attack her, but the priest immobilizes him with a spell, rendering him unconscious. The priest announces that Chong is no longer his student and will be expelled from the palace. The priest and his assistant visit the location of the moon sword. The priest explains that he must choose one of the students as his successor, someone capable of wielding the sword to protect the human world from demons. Meanwhile, John and Luna grow closer, confessing their feelings for each other. Luna asks John to propose to her family after they pass the final test. John, saddened because his master disapproves of their relationship, fears breaking her heart, but reassures her that he will do it. The next day, the final test begins. The priest gathers all the students, announcing that whoever passes will have the opportunity to wield the moon sword. Since John and Luna are his most skilled students, he gives them the chance and transports them to the moonlight chamber. But suddenly, Luna disappears, leaving John shocked as he keeps calling out for her. Luna finds herself back in her home and encounters the immortal man. This time she sees his face and is stunned to discover it's John. However, he suddenly attacks her and begins to strangle her. Meanwhile, John is transported to a desert where he meets a strange-looking Luna wielding a magical sword. As he approaches her, she suddenly attacks him, and they stab each other with the sword, both feeling as though they are about to die. Luna realizes it's an illusion, activates the seal on her horse, unleashes a massive energy, and shatters the illusion. They both emerge from the moonlight room, astonished to see each other. The priest informs them that Luna has passed the test, broken the illusion, and earned the chance to claim the moon sword. Luna is overjoyed, but John is anxious and worried about her. He asks her to delay claiming the sword until he confirms something, leaving her to meet his teacher. John asks his teacher if Luna's life is in danger, but the teacher doesn't tell him the truth. Instead, he casts a spell on John, trapping him inside a small doll. The next day, Luna is puzzled that John hasn't returned. She goes to claim the sword alone, feeling nervous as she thinks about John. Meanwhile, John manages to break the spell and escapes the doll, rushing to stop Luna before she claims the sword. However, when he arrives, he finds her already performing the ritual, the seal on her forehead glowing as she grasps the sword. He tries to stop her, begging her to let go of the sword, but she doesn't listen and successfully pulls it out. The place collapses, and John notices the sword draining her energy. He takes it from her, and Shiha appears, telling Luna that John had deceived her and only used her to obtain the sword. Luna is devastated by Shiha's words and starts crying. John defends himself, trying to explain that he was only worried about her, but Luna doesn't believe him. She slaps him, takes the sword, and continues crying. Shiha attempts to attack her, but Luna uses the sword, releasing a massive energy that knocks everyone to the ground. The water demon senses danger and comes to rescue her, taking her to his realm. John suffers a severe injury, and Shiha stays by his side until he wakes up. Determined not to give up on Luna, John vows to find her. The water demon realizes the moon sword is draining Luna's soul, takes it from her, and uses sound magic to seal it. Luna regains consciousness, feeling exhausted, and the water demon gives her an elixir to restore her spiritual energy. He plays music with his magic to heal her. John goes to the sea, calling out for her. The water demon appears and tells him the sword could drain Luna's energy until she dies. The only way to save her is to find a spiritual artifact called the Bone Eater, buried in the wasteland for thousands of years and nearly impossible to locate. John decides to risk his life to find it. The demon transports him to the wasteland, where John searches tirelessly until he collapses from exhaustion. Meanwhile, the water demon's brother tries to seize the moon sword, but the water demon stops him and warns him to stay away from Luna. He stays by her side until she wakes up, explaining that John loves her and has risked his life to find the artifact to save her. Luna is moved by his words, feeling guilty for misjudging John. She asks the demon to take her to him. Using sound magic, the water demon transports her to John, who is in pain but enduring it to save her. John succeeds in finding the spiritual artifact but cannot approach it due to a magical barrier. Luna arrives and sees John in agony, crying because he is risking his life for her. John is surprised to see her, thinking he's dreaming. Luna manages to break through the barrier, dispels the enchantment on the artifact, and claims it. John rushes to her, carrying her back to the water demon. John feels weak due to the curse in his body, and the demon tries to ease his pain. Luna feels helpless and scared for him. Luna begins to play the spiritual artifact, but she grows tired and falls asleep to rest. John holds her to comfort her, and when she wakes up, she is healed, her energy restored. She thanks the water demon for everything, bids him farewell, and they return to the castle. The maid is overjoyed to see her. The priest gathers everyone in the castle, announcing that Luna has passed the test and has the opportunity to become his successor. However, Luna refuses because she doesn't want to leave John. The priest appoints John as her guardian to protect her, making them both happy to stay together. At night, they sit by the fire in a magical boat, traveling until they reach the high priest's location. He welcomes them, and Luna begins attending lessons to learn how to become immortal, with John by her side encouraging her. Their relationship grows stronger. The next morning, John wakes up to find Luna speaking with the high priest. She tells him she is willing to sacrifice her immortality to cure John's curse. Touched by her words, John loves her even more. Later, the priest and his disciples prepare to close the gate through which demons enter the human world. Luna plays the spiritual artifact, and everything seems to be going well until she loses control and plays involuntarily. It turns out the water demon's brother is using a counterspell. The gate explodes, releasing many demons. The disciples fight to protect the gate, and a demoness arrives intending to possess Luna. The priest fights her but is injured and unable to defeat her. Luna's soul begins to drain, and John wants to save her but is hindered by the curse in his body. John's teacher communicates with him telepathically, telling him he has a chance to save her by using the moon sword. John initially refuses, but when the demoness defeats the priest and attacks Luna, he takes the blow for her. He summons the moon sword, gathers all his strength, and attacks the demoness, successfully defeating her. The demons flee, and John collapses with a severe injury. Luna runs to him, holding him as she cries and begs him not to leave her. He tells her he's happy he sacrificed himself to protect her, and promises they'll meet again in the next life, and his soul begins to fade. He remembers his memories with her and the sweet moments they shared together. The last thing he says is that he loves her. He reaches out his hand to touch her, but he vanishes. Luna collapses. She keeps screaming and calling out to him. Suddenly, the portal goes out of control, and everyone is afraid of the demons escaping from hell. But a masked figure appears. It's immortal. he succeeds in closing the portal. Him to escape and leave her behind. He refuses, declaring he would rather die with her. As the demoness prepares to attack them, a water demon suddenly appears to defend them, stating that he will not allow her to harm his friends. The demoness laughs, pointing out that he can only use his full power in water and is powerless on land. A servant arrives with a water container, casting a spell to make it rain. The demoness, afraid, retreats, knowing she cannot defeat him under these conditions. Luna, exhausted, cannot return to the palace for fear of execution. The water demon takes her to his realm under the sea. When Luna awakens, she is happy to see that John worried about her. He tells her he cannot live without her, kisses her forehead, and they sit together under a sacred tree. The water demon is astonished as the tree, dead for centuries, comes back to life, attributing its revival to their love. The tree possesses healing powers capable of curing any poison. The water demon creates a path for them to use the tree's power to heal the priest. He gives Luna a necklace, promising to help her whenever she needs him. Luna thanks him, and he opens a portal to return them to their world. Meanwhile, a servant discovers that Chong poisoned the priest and confronts him. Chong confesses, intending to eliminate the servant, but the priest, now healed, intervenes. It turns out this was part of a plan by Luna and John to expose Chong. Chong is arrested, and the priest orders his imprisonment, expressing sorrow as he had regarded Chong as a son, only for him to betray him. This clears Luna and John's names. Luna decides to confront her tormentor. John takes her to a place where they can settle their differences. Luna defeats her, but chooses to forgive her this time. John warns her that if she tries to harm Luna again, she will regret it. He then takes Luna away. The next day, a trial is held. Chong confesses that she helped him in his scheme. The priest discovers that one of them caused the fire. Upon searching them, he finds a magical orb with Chong, revealing that she planted it on him. Chong tries to defend himself, accusing her of collaborating with the demoness, but no one believes him. Enraged, he attempts to attack her, but the priest immobilizes him with a spell, rendering him unconscious. The priest announces that Chong is no longer his student and will be expelled from the palace. The priest and his assistant visit the location of the moon sword. The priest explains that he must choose one of the students as his successor, someone capable of wielding the sword to protect the human world from demons. Meanwhile, John and Luna grow closer, confessing their feelings for each other. Luna asks John to propose to her family after they pass the final test. John, saddened because his master disapproves of their relationship, fears breaking her heart, but reassures her that he will do it. The next day, the final test begins. The priest gathers all the students, announcing that whoever passes will have the opportunity to wield the moon sword. Since John and Luna are his most skilled students, he gives them the chance and transports them to the moonlight chamber. But suddenly, Luna disappears, leaving John shocked as he keeps calling out for her. Luna finds herself back in her home and encounters the immortal man. This time she sees his face and is stunned to discover it's John. However, he suddenly attacks her and begins to strangle her. Meanwhile, John is transported to a desert where he meets a strange-looking Luna wielding a magical sword. As he approaches her, she suddenly attacks him, and they stab each other with the sword, both feeling as though they are about to die. Luna realizes it's an illusion, activates the seal on her horse, unleashes a massive energy, and shatters the illusion. They both emerge from the moonlight room, astonished to see each other. The priest informs them that Luna has passed the test, broken the illusion, and earned the chance to claim the moon sword. Luna is overjoyed, but John is anxious and worried about her. He asks her to delay claiming the sword until he confirms something, leaving her to meet his teacher. John asks his teacher if Luna's life is in danger, but the teacher doesn't tell him the truth. Instead, he casts a spell on John, trapping him inside a small doll. The next day, Luna is puzzled that John hasn't returned. She goes to claim the sword alone, feeling nervous as she thinks about John. Meanwhile, John manages to break the spell and escapes the doll, rushing to stop Luna before she claims the sword. However, when he arrives, he finds her already performing the ritual, the seal on her forehead glowing as she grasps the sword. He tries to stop her, begging her to let go of the sword, but she doesn't listen and successfully pulls it out. The place collapses, and John notices the sword draining her energy. He takes it from her, and Shiha appears, telling Luna that They try to figure out how to prove his innocence. The water demon knows his brother is behind what happened, but refuses to say so. Luna comes up with an idea and gives Immortal a drink, asking him to drink to prove he is not John, as John would start hallucinating when he drank. But Immortal shocks her by drinking it without changing his behavior, telling her he doesn't remember her or love her. Luna leaves, drinking in sadness because she sees her lover in front of her but cannot be with him. The water demon confronts his brother, who admits what he did, saying he wants his people to leave the water and live on land. His brother is shocked by his words and decides to imprison him to stop his plan. Luna sits under the sacred tree, recalling her memories with John and hallucinating. Immortal is affected by her words, feeling his heartache. Luna begins crying and almost stumbles, but Immortal catches her. She imagines John in front of her, wanting to embrace him, but Immortal carries her in his arms and lets her sleep. He goes to the water demon, telling him the time is up. He restrains him. The water demon admits he is the one responsible for what happened. It turns out he is half demon, half human. Immortal decides to capture him. The water demon refuses to hand him over, but his brother says he will take responsibility for what he did and goes with them. Luna apologizes to the water demon, promising to try to convince Immortal to release his brother. The demon thanks her, giving her a necklace and telling her he will always be her friend. Later, Immortal imprisons the demon and places a magical seal to prevent him from escaping. Immortal returns to the palace and meditates to enhance his spiritual power. Luna sees him, but doesn't disturb him. As she leaves, she stumbles and nearly falls. Immortal rushes to catch her, holding her in his arms. Luna is surprised by his actions, realizing he cares for her. She cries because John's personality still lingers, as Immortal doesn't like touching her and becomes nervous, leaving her to continue meditating. Meanwhile, Shia is upset about John and decides to take revenge on everyone. She has a magical orb and summons demons who mock her, thinking she is weak, but she easily kills one of them, shocking them with her power. They become afraid and kneel before her. Meanwhile, Immortal is meditating when suddenly he feels pain in his heart. Luna finds him unconscious and sits beside him, giving him part of her spiritual energy, but she faints from exhaustion. Immortal wakes up to find her beside him. He takes her to her room and lets her rest, but she keeps holding onto his clothes, calling out for John. Immortal is moved that she still remembers and loves him. He covers her and sits beside her until he feels she is waking up. He checks on her, leaves, and walks away. Luna finds out that Enol stayed by her side until he felt she was recovering, checked on her, and then left. Luna learns that he stayed with her all night, and she thanks him for being kind to her. However, he feels embarrassed and tells her he was just returning the favor, nothing more. Later, he receives news that demons are attacking families, and Luna decides to go with him. Meanwhile, we see the students fighting the demons, but their numbers are overwhelming, and they get surrounded. Suddenly, the Immortal arrives and takes control of the situation. The demons are terrified at the sight of him and try to flee, but he immobilizes them. He wants to know who their new leader is. The water demon arrives and tells him he will interrogate them, takes them away, and disappears. The Immortal learns from the students that the magical barrier preventing demons from entering the palace has been destroyed. He goes to place a stronger barrier, but feels exhausted from using a large amount of spiritual energy. He returns to his palace to rest and regain his energy through meditation. During this time, a servant from the palace visits the place where the water demon's brother is imprisoned. She starts talking to him, and for the first time, he feels that someone isn't afraid of him. He begins to admire her. The next day, the water demon visits the Immortal's palace and proposes a peace treaty. He promises not to let demons attack humans and wants to free his brother from prison. Everyone opposes the idea because they don't trust him. A vote is held, and Luna tries to convince them that the water demon is kind and has helped her multiple times. People begin to believe her, and they raise their hands, but the vote ends in a tie. The Immortal raises his hand, breaking the tie. Luna is surprised that he agreed with her and goes to talk to the water demon. He thanks her for helping him, and the Immortal sees them together. He feels jealous, takes her away, and leaves. Shia is in captivity and visits the place where the water demon's brother is imprisoned. As soon as he sees her, he learns about her life and offers to cooperate with her to achieve their goals. Later, the Immortal starts teaching Luna magic and how to increase her spiritual energy. Suddenly, a mark appears on her forehead, her energy spirals out of control, and she is thrown far away. The Immortal rushes to her and catches her before she falls. He is puzzled by what happened, but reassures her that she is fine. However, after she leaves, he collapses to the ground, feeling weak. The high priest sees him, is shocked to find him injured and bleeding, and begins to heal him. He tells the Immortal that the closer he gets to Luna, the weaker his body becomes, and his immortality could be at risk. The Immortal decides to distance himself from her and gives her a cup with magical water to make her lose her memory and forget about him. She refuses because she still loves him and throws the water on the ground. The high priest enters and tells her the truth, explaining that as long as she stays close to him, she endangers him. Luna is shocked by his words and decides to leave him to avoid hurting him. She walks away crying. Meanwhile, the water demon goes to the other demons, uses his power to make them kneel, and threatens them, saying that if they attack humans, he will destroy them. Everyone is terrified of him and obeys his orders. This concludes the events of the first part. Activate the notification bell